It was past midnight when I finally left the studio parking lot. My name is Mara Bennett, and I'm a journalist, supposed to be working on a rock and roll story. But tonight I was flying down Highway 12 instead, headed towards Cedar Hollow for something darker, an interview tip about a local legend. The warm hum of my Honda Civic was the only sound inside, save for the soft drone of tires on asphalt and the beats still pulsing softly through the AUX cable. I thumbed through my phone. The time read 1:03 a.m., and the sky was ink black, pierced only by distant stars and the occasional street lamp halo. That's when the unease hit me. A lane marker flickered under my headlights, and for a moment the road looked like a living vein, pulsing and shifting. I shook my head. I was exhausted. A week of overtime and hot lead interviews, and now this midnight assignment. I should have left earlier, but pushing through the night had become second nature. A shape appeared at the edge of my headlights, half off the pavement, silhouetted by the faint amber glow of a distant sign. I slowed. My pulse jerked. Was that someone standing there? Hand raised, maybe? I blinked, checked the rear view. Nothing. But then, no, definitely someone. Pale. Still. I flicked on the map app, 3 more miles, then a right onto Old Cedar Road. The legend said the hill there was called Green Man Road, after a local story. Nothing officially, just whispered tales of something seen, briefly, then gone. The figure shifted. I slowed to 30. Get closer, closer, and then I saw it luminous. Not reflective clothing, but a gentle green glow, like bioluminescent moss or something otherworldly. Behind the glow, featureless. No face I could ever call eyes or mouth. Just smooth light, like a frost-covered window with no view beyond. I swallowed. My knuckles whitened on the wheel. Past it, headlights skirted its outline. Heat of the engine sounded too loud. Should I turn around? My mind screamed. Pick it up, no. Let it walk, no. You're a journalist, you've got to know. I eased to a stop 20 feet ahead, watching it in my mirror. Heart drumming so loud I could taste it. It turned and walked onto the road, slow and deliberate, toward my open car door as though invited. I flipped on my hazards, pulled to the side, and flicked the hazards again, blink, blink, blink in the dark. The road narrowed here. Trees stretched their knuckles overhead. The smell of pine and damp earth filled the open window. I clicked it shut. There'd be more than bugs in the night air. I sat there, frozen, watching the green figure stride toward me. What the hell are you? I tried my phone, but the screen glitched, freezing on the map. The ambient light from mile markers wavered, like everything was flickering. Then it stepped onto the hood. A soft thud. I shot up in my seat. The headlights caught a pale, glowing hand pressed to the metal. 5 digits, but no nails. No knuckles defined, just smooth, elongated beauty. It touched the glass. I slammed the door shut. The car interior blinked dark for a second, then the engine's light. My breath stuck in my throat. The hand lifted, disappeared behind the windshield wipers. I glanced between rear view and front. There was something in the back seat too. A faint shimmer, a patch of fog-like glow spreading on the passenger seat. My pulse thundered. I didn't know if it could speak. Maybe it doesn't. I looked forward. Silhouette leaned close, pressing a face into the windshield. No face. I locked the doors. My foot trembled on the brake. The engine was still running. I knew what a horror move like this looked like in movies, but none of that mattered. In that moment, I hit the gas. The figure didn't vanish. It clung to the hood as I accelerated, the glow blurring past trees like a shooting star. My headlights revealed it clearly. No face, no eyes, soft green shimmer. Leaned forward as if thirsty for the road's breath. But then, as I crested the small hill before Old Cedar Road, it slid off the hood with a thump, skidding across the asphalt before vanishing into the darkness. The green glow winked out like a match blown out by the wind. My heart pounded so hard I thought my head would explode. I kept going, slowing down only once I was a mile past the crest. Old Cedar Road was a narrow, gravel byway lined by ancient pines. The night swallowed my headlights the deeper I drove. My hands shook, but my foot stayed heavy. I didn't risk turning on the radio. I didn't call someone. I drove to Cedar Hollow without stopping. I parked outside a 24-hour diner, the sign's fluorescent red barely making a difference in my wide-eyed face. I sat in the car, engine ticking down. I closed my eyes and asked myself, did you just see a ghost? A local legend come true? Or malfunctioning light in the windshield? I couldn't answer, but I knew one thing. I'd turned right at exactly 1:07 a.m., and I knew more, much more, than I had before. The diner's fluorescent lights were harsh, buzzing overhead as I stared at the dark stain on my jean jacket. A smear of green glow that didn't belong. My hands trembled, nearly knocking my coffee. I pressed my thumb to the smudge, half expecting it to burn into my skin. It left no trace beyond a faint luminescence. I wanted to rationalize. Dirt mixed with tree sap? Reflection from a glow stick prank? But my gut knew. This was him, the faceless passenger. The glow hadn't left with him. It clung to me. By the time I finished my second coffee, the edges of the stain had begun to fade, but the chill down my spine hadn't. I locked the car and headed upstairs to the booth where the night manager leaned over paperwork. "Long drive?" he asked, though he probably saw my haunted eyes. I nodded, hoping my words wouldn't betray me. I asked if he'd ever seen anything strange on Old Cedar Road or around Green Man Hill. He paused. He looked at an old calendar pinned on the wall, an image of pine forests. "They used to call it," he frowned, scanning, "Green Man Road. Used to be part of an old route. Folks said a man walked it at night. Never talked, just appeared, disappeared." He shrugged. "Who knows? Some say he was hit by a car and kept walking anyway." His expression turned grim. "They say if you flash your lights 3 times, he'll appear. If you stop, he'll climb in." I nodded slowly, each word weighing down the wood booth between us. I left my coffee half drunk. Back in the car, I tapped the greenish remnant on my sleeve again. I took a picture, face obscured, ambient neon glow. I posted it to my private drive. No one else needed to see it yet. The phone pinged. My editor. "Finish the Cedar Hollow piece by midnight." A rock story? No, I had something far stranger. I started the engine and pointed back onto Old Cedar Road, pulling out just after 2 a.m. The trees waved black arms at me. 2 miles in, I passed the crest where I'd first hit the figure. Here I stopped. Hazard lights. 3 flashes. Nothing. I felt gullible. Then I saw it. A faint glow in my rear view. Far back. One glowing dot swaying where no reflective jacket could be. My pulse stilled. I waited, armed grips tightening on the wheel. I drove forward. The glow followed, silent. Closer. Then, at one of the dips in the road, the figure materialized behind me. Smooth, glowing, limbs too long for a normal human. No face, no features, just pale green light. I stopped the car, heart hammering, headlights on. The figure stopped 6 feet behind me. I grabbed my phone, recording, but the screen flickered just like before. "This? Who are you?" My voice echoed, thin and broken. No response. Branches snapped overhead. The smell of pine and damp earth filled the open window. I clicked it shut. There'd be more than bugs in the night air. I sat there, frozen, watching the green figure stride toward me. "What the hell are you?" I tried my phone, but the screen glitched, freezing on the map. The ambient light from mile markers wavered, like everything was flickering. Then it stepped onto the hood. A soft thud. I shot up in my seat. The headlights caught a pale, glowing hand pressed to the metal. 5 digits, but no nails. No knuckles defined, just smooth, elongated beauty. It touched the glass. I slammed the door shut. The car interior blinked dark for a second, then the engine's light. My breath stuck in my throat. The hand lifted, disappeared behind the windshield wipers. I glanced between rear view and front. There was something in the back seat too. A faint shimmer, a patch of fog-like glow spreading on the passenger seat. My pulse thundered. I didn't know if it could speak. Maybe it doesn't. I looked forward. Silhouette leaned close, pressing a face into the windshield. No face. I locked the doors. My foot trembled on the brake. The engine was still running. I knew what a horror move like this looked like in movies, but none of that mattered. In that moment, I hit the gas. The figure didn't vanish. It clung to the hood as I accelerated, the glow blurring past trees like a shooting star. My headlights revealed it clearly. No face, no eyes, soft green shimmer. Leaned forward as if thirsty for the road's breath. But then, as I crested the small hill before Old Cedar Road, it slid off the hood with a thump, skidding across the asphalt before vanishing into the darkness. The green glow winked out like a match blown out by the wind. My heart pounded so hard I thought my head would explode. I kept going, slowing down only once I was a mile past the crest. Old Cedar Road was a narrow, gravel byway lined by ancient pines. The night swallowed my headlights the deeper I drove. My hands shook, but my foot stayed heavy. I didn't risk turning on the radio. I didn't call someone. I drove to Cedar Hollow without stopping. I parked outside a 24-hour diner, the signs fluorescent red barely making a difference in my wide-eyed face. I sat in the car, engine ticking down. I closed my eyes and asked myself, did you just see a ghost? A local legend come true? Or malfunctioning light in the windshield? I couldn't answer, but I knew one thing. I turned right at exactly 1:07 a.m., and I knew more, much more, than I had before. The diner's fluorescent lights were harsh, buzzing overhead as I stared at the dark stain on my jean jacket. A smear of green glow that didn't belong. My hands trembled, nearly knocking my coffee. I pressed my thumb to the smudge, half expecting it to burn into my skin. It left no trace beyond a faint luminescence. I wanted to rationalize. Dirt mixed with tree sap? Reflection from a glow stick prank? But my gut knew. This was him, the faceless passenger. The glow hadn't left with him. It clung to me. By the time I finished my second coffee, the edges of the stain had begun to fade, but the chill down my spine hadn't. I locked the car and headed upstairs to the booth where the night manager leaned over paperwork. "Long drive?" he asked, though he probably saw my haunted eyes. I nodded, hoping my words wouldn't betray me. I asked if he'd ever seen anything strange on Old Cedar Road or around Green Man Hill. He paused. He looked at an old calendar pinned on the wall, an image of pine forests. "They used to call it," he frowned, scanning, "Green Man Road. Used to be part of an old route. Folks said a man walked it at night. Never talked, just appeared, disappeared." He shrugged. "Who knows? Some say he was hit by a car and kept walking anyway." His expression turned grim. "They say if you flash your lights 3 times, he'll appear. If you stop, he'll climb in." I nodded slowly, each word weighing down the wood booth between us. I left my coffee half drunk. Back in the car, I tapped the greenish remnant on my sleeve again. I took a picture, face obscured, ambient neon glow. I posted it to my private drive. No one else needed to see it yet. The phone pinged. My editor. "Finished the Cedar Hollow piece by midnight. A rock story?" No, I had something far stranger. I started the engine and pointed back onto Old Cedar Road, pulling out just after 2 a.m. The trees waved black arms at me. 2 miles in, I passed the crest where I'd first hit the figure. Here I stopped. Hazard lights. 3 flashes. Nothing. I felt gullible. Then I saw it. A faint glow in my rear view. Far back. One glowing dot swaying where no reflective jacket could be. My pulse stilled. I waited, armed grips tightening on the wheel. I drove forward. The glow followed, silent. Closer. Then, at one of the dips in the road, the figure materialized behind me. Smooth, glowing, limbs too long for a normal human. No face, no features, just pale green light. I stopped the car, heart hammering, headlights on. The figure stopped 6 feet behind me. I grabbed my phone, recording, but the screen flickered just like before. "This? Who are you?" My voice echoed, thin and broken. No response. Branches snapped overhead. A breeze whispered through pine needles. My breath came in sputtered clouds. He lifted an arm and tapped an index finger on my rear window, right where my face was reflected. It startled me so deeply I turned off the headlights. The figure glowed brighter in the pitch. I stepped out. "Okay, I see you." My voice was small. He moved closer. I could see smoothness where a nose or mouth should be. Flat, featureless, and yet luminous. He raised his other hand, palm open. His skin was pale green, almost translucent, veins dark lines beneath. No warping, no deformity, just blank perfection. He extended the hand further. I hesitated. Shoot, I was a journalist chasing a story. This was bigger than any rock band. I edged forward. He stayed still. A drop of dew fell between us, splashed on the pavement and glowed green. Then I saw a groove in the asphalt under his feet, 5-digit print impressions in glowing dust. I crouched and lit his trail. It extended over the road's crest and vanished where the hill crowned. My reporter instincts flooded back. I took notes, photos, voice memos. Faceless, glowing, featureless child of the woods. My passenger's outline, the handprints, no eyes, no name. He took a step backward. I shoved my phone into my jacket. He nodded, a U-turn indicator under his inner arm, just a flicker of motion, but I swear he nodded. He turned toward the woods and disappeared into the trees, extinguishing the faint green glow all at once. The forest exhaled. I exhaled. I paced. My breath steamed. My brain pinged between exhilaration, horror, and guilt. Did I just see a ghost? A local myth come to life? A real man with a glow? Raymond Robinson? Charlie No-Face? Only this one glowed, radiant like a warning beacon. I slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door. Not until I heard the apartment key in the lock did I feel safe again. Inside, I spread my folder across the coffee table. Restaurant receipt, coffee cup still warm. The green smear on my coat. GPS log, miles 12 to 14, Old Cedar Road, at 2:17 to 2:20 a.m. Exhaustion crashed me to the sofa. I stared at the ceiling, asked myself, do I have enough, or do I go back? I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that green glow on the pavement, shimmering fingerprints and a faceless silhouette in the gloom. By midday, desperation drove me to my apartment study, where I loaded my camera footage and voice memos onto my laptop. The playback was unsettling. The first few minutes were mostly engine noise and wind, but around 2:18 a.m., just as I'd stopped to flash my lights 3 times, I heard it, a deep, drawn-out whisper unlike anything I recognized. Pausing the clip, I scrubbed the waveform. There it was again, a breathy Mara? Or was it more? The sound was vague, like memory muffled underwater. I slowed it down. The whisper repeated, layered. M, then Mar, echoing into silence. My name or something like it. My breath caught. Next, I scrubbed to the mirror reflection. At 2:19 a.m., a flicker. Behind me in the rear view, a shifting shape. I froze the frame, a luminescent blur where a face should have been. Light glinting off smooth skin, no features. My pulse rattled. It was him, in my back seat. But how? How had he reappeared inside? I replayed that moment over and over. Then I heard it, distinct. Footsteps, quiet but deliberate, inside the cabin. The volume bar spiked on the waveform, but there was no corresponding video shift. I checked with headphone volume. Silence. My eyes feared instead of saw it. Every logical bone in me wanted to delete the footage, forget the smear, forget the whisper. But the journalist in me demanded more. I fired off a text to my editor. Lorraine, running a bit late, working on a deeper piece. Will update by 8 p.m. Then I texted my roommate, Jake. Weird question. Have you noticed anything odd in my apartment? Lights flickering, shadows? You can just lie. He replied almost immediately, nah, roomie's room last night? Listened to you toss and turn. No weird stuff. Good. He hadn't seen or heard anything obvious. But what lurked on my recordings was real. Folklore check-in. I reopened my notes about the vanishing hitchhiker motif. Classic pickup. No conversation. Sudden disappearance. Sometimes leaving physical items, like a jacket or glove. Except this time, the figure didn't vanish once. It lingered. It didn't just leave a token, it left audio. And it glowed. I dove into the archives about Charlie No-Face and the Green Man of Pennsylvania. They hail from a 1919 accident. Raymond Robinson electrocuted, losing facial features and walking roads at night. Later, he became a local legend. Kids would flash lights or honk 3 times to summon him near Piney Fork Tunnel, Route 351. But the real Ray was kind, not a ghost, not malevolent. But the myth? It says his ghost still roams. Some claim he stalls cars, steals headlights, or leaves spectral imprints of No-Face and green light. I cross-referenced. My encounter on Old Cedar Road? Same pattern. 3 flashes. A lingering spirit, spectral fingerprints. I gathered that both legends, Classic Hitchhiker and Green Man, overlap here. A knock came at my door. I froze mid-edit. No light was on. Jake, you okay? My shoulders dropped. Yeah, just working. He saw the setup. Laptop, runes of waveform highlights, timestamped frames. You saw it. I did. I motioned to the screen. Listen. We cranked the volume. That unmistakable whisper echoed. Jake leaned forward. He pressed the spacebar. Mara. We looked at each other. Did you say my name? No. His face was tense. He turned to the mirror. Mara. Something's behind us. My gaze snapped. The glass reflected only our pale faces, nothing else. Yet a shiver crept up my spine. I swallowed. Tomorrow night, I go back. Jake nodded. You're not doing this alone. I didn't want comfort. I wanted truth. The whisper, the glow, the legend converging on me and into me. I glanced back at the timestamp, 2:20 a.m., a good time to catch whatever followed. I closed my laptop, made coffee, and waited for night to fall. Night draped itself over Cedar Hollow like velvet at exactly 2:17 a.m. Jake and I pulled off onto that narrow gravel shoulder. He parked the car facing the road's crest, engine idling for ambient noise. Inside, my recorder between us, camera rolling. Footsteps and low thunder tracks lined the interior. Ready, I whispered. Jake nodded. His flashlight swung on, 2 silent beams cutting through pine shadows. He rigged the handheld to sweep while I aimed the dashcam. I tapped hazards 3 times. Every blink resonated. My chest tight. Nothing yet, Jake murmured. Just insects and pine. We waited. Each minute clicked louder. I glanced rear view, nothing. Then, behind us, a soggy crackle of dry leaves. We both froze. Record that, I hissed. The dashcam's red light pulsed. Another snap, closer. Mirror flickered, something shimmering. I leaned forward. It was him. Glow pooling behind Jake's seat, blotched and uneven. I swallowed. He's here. A soft murmur echoed, too low to catch words, but unmistakably human. I replayed in my mind the recording from last night. Mara, could he speak or just mimic? The glow moved forward, closer, again in the mirror. Jake, he held my gaze. Do you want me to turn on the headlights? I hesitated. No, let's keep him visible only in infrared. Jake switched on the thermal imaging camera. The windows glowed blue, cool glass and hot headlights. In the thermal view, a tall figure emerged behind us, featureless but body-shaped, all in cold luminescence. We watched the silhouette step toward the car, hand touching the rear window, like before. My recorder captured it all. I whispered narration, faceless, soft curves beneath no facial plane. He tapped again, this time 3 brisk taps, one after another. We cleared. Butterflies in my gut. I sat frozen. He knows our names, I said. Jake's voice was low. Look, mirror. I obeyed. I saw me, Jake, and behind me, my reflection, and another blurred shape flickering at the rear corner of the seat. Ever so briefly, a pale green glow painted the edge of my hair. I shut eyes tight. When I dared open the next time, the cabin was empty. No glow, just my pulse and jagged breath. That was... I couldn't finish. Jake's camera recorded every second. We kept going to the crest. 10 feet of road no wider than a hallway, footsteps soft in gravel. Then, all at once, the glow flared at the crest. For a moment, I thought it was over our roof, like he was walking on the car. I shut off the engine. We both held our breath. The glow turned and moved off into the woods, back the way he came. Jake exhaled. We got video and audio. Holy shit. I nodded, but unease pooled in my belly. This wasn't over. His presence was deep inside the car. He tapped our windows. He knew us. We sat for 10 minutes. Nothing. The night had reclaimed the road. We left. Neither of us spoke until we reached town. He pulled over in front of my apartment, engine off. I handed him a hot coffee. Thank you. He smiled weakly. 5 takeaways? He speaks, whispering my name from beyond the seat. He knows our patterns. Same spot, same ritual. He tests us. 3 taps. Traditional threshold motif. He's not alone. I'm him. His glow mirrored in the mirror inside us. Later that night, I listened to the recordings. The waveform hovered low, but between breaths, Mara, and then Jake. Distinct, imperfect, but clear, and always right before the taps. Folklore notes. The vanishing hitchhiker variant where ghosts echo names and leave physical evidence, garment, fingerprints, is documented in numerous tales. The serial tapping ritual echoes deeply supernatural, guardian thresholds, and the Green Man of Pennsylvania figure, Charlie No Face, was known to respond to flashlight signals or honks at tunnels. Some witnesses recalled hearing his voice, low, warbled, often repeating names. But hearing my name, that was new. Jake and I returned to the apartment later that night, adrenaline still pulsing in our veins. The playback was unsettling. The first few minutes were mostly engine noise and wind, but around 2:18 a.m., just as I'd stopped to flash my lights 3 times, I heard it. A deep, drawn-out whisper unlike anything I recognized. Pausing the clip, I scrubbed the waveform. There it was again, a breathy Mara? Or was it more? The sound was vague, like memory muffled underwater. I slowed it down. The whisper repeated, layered. M, then Mar, echoing into silence. My name or something like it. My breath caught. Next, I scrubbed to the mirror reflection. At 2:19 a.m., a flicker. Behind me in the rear view, a shifting shape. I froze the frame, a luminescent blur where a face should have been. Light glinting off smooth skin, no features. My pulse rattled. It was him, in my back seat. But how? How had he reappeared inside? I replayed that moment over and over. Then I heard it, distinct. Footsteps, quiet but deliberate, inside the cabin. The volume bar spiked on the waveform, but there was no corresponding video shift. I checked with headphone volume. Silence. My eyes feared instead of saw it. Every logical bone in me wanted to delete the footage, forget the smear, forget the whisper. But the journalist in me demanded more. I fired off a text to my editor. Lorraine, running a bit late, working on a deeper piece. Will update by 8 p.m. Then I texted my roommate, Jake. Weird question. Have you noticed anything odd in my apartment? Lights flickering, shadows? You can just lie. He replied almost immediately, nah, roomie's room last night? Listened to you toss and turn. No weird stuff. Good. He hadn't seen or heard anything obvious. But what lurked on my recordings was real. Folklore check-in. I reopened my notes about the vanishing hitchhiker motif. Classic pickup. No conversation. Sudden disappearance. Sometimes leaving physical items, like a jacket or glove. Except this time, the figure didn't vanish once. It lingered. It didn't just leave a token, it left audio. And it glowed. I dove into the archives about Charlie No Face and the Green Man of Pennsylvania. They hail from a 1919 accident. Raymond Robinson electrocuted, losing facial features and walking roads at night. Later, he became a local legend. Kids would flash lights or honk 3 times to summon him near Piney Fork Tunnel, Route 351. But the real Ray was kind, not a ghost, not malevolent. But the myth? It says his ghost still roams. Some claim he stalls cars, steals headlights, or leaves spectral imprints of no face and green light. I cross-referenced. My encounter on Old Cedar Road? Same pattern. 3 flashes. A lingering spirit, spectral fingerprints. I gathered that both legends, Classic Hitchhiker and Green Man, overlap here. A knock came at my door. I froze mid-edit. No light was on. Jake, you okay? My shoulders dropped. Yeah, just working. He saw the setup. Laptop, runes of waveform highlights, timestamped frames. You saw it. I did. I motioned to the screen. Listen. We cranked the volume. That unmistakable whisper echoed. Jake leaned forward. He pressed the spacebar. Mara. We looked at each other. Did you say my name? No. His face was tense. He turned to the mirror. Mara. Something's behind us. My gaze snapped. The glass reflected only our pale faces, nothing else. Yet a shiver crept up my spine. I swallowed. Tomorrow night, I go back. Jake nodded. You're not doing this alone. I didn't want comfort. I wanted truth. The whisper, the glow, the legend converging on me and into me. I glanced back at the timestamp, 2:20 a.m., a good time to catch whatever followed. I closed my laptop, made coffee, and waited for night to fall. Night draped itself over Cedar Hollow like velvet at exactly 2:17 a.m. Jake and I pulled off onto that narrow gravel shoulder. He parked the car facing the road's crest, engine idling for ambient noise. Inside, my recorder between us, camera rolling. Footsteps and low thunder tracks lined the interior. Ready, I whispered. Jake nodded. His flashlight swung on, 2 silent beams cutting through pine shadows. He rigged the handheld to sweep while I aimed the dashcam. I tapped hazards 3 times. Every blink resonated. My chest tight. Nothing yet, Jake murmured. Just insects and pine. We waited. Each minute clicked louder. I glanced rear view, nothing. Then, behind us, a soggy crackle of dry leaves. We both froze. Record that, I hissed. The dashcam's red light pulsed. Another snap, closer. Mirror flickered, something shimmering. I leaned forward. It was him. Glow pooling behind Jake's seat, blotched and uneven. I swallowed. He's here. A soft murmur echoed, too low to catch words, but unmistakably human. I replayed in my mind the recording from last night. Mara, could he speak or just mimic? The glow moved forward, closer, again in the mirror. Jake, he held my gaze. Do you want me to turn on the headlights? I hesitated. No, let's keep him visible only in infrared. Jake switched on the thermal imaging camera. The windows glowed blue, cool glass and hot headlights. In the thermal view, a tall figure emerged behind us, featureless but body-shaped, all in cold luminescence. We watched the silhouette step toward the car, hand touching the rear window, like before. My recorder captured it all. I whispered narration. Faceless, soft curves beneath no facial plane. He tapped again, this time 3 brisk taps, one after another. We cleared. Butterflies in my gut. I sat frozen. He knows our names, I said. Jake's voice was low. Look, mirror. I obeyed. I saw me, Jake, and behind me, my reflection, and another blurred shape flickering at the rear corner of the seat. Ever so briefly, a pale green glow painted the edge of my hair. I shut eyes tight. When I dared open the next time, the cabin was empty. No glow, just my pulse and jagged breath. I couldn't finish. Jake's camera recorded every second. We kept going to the crest. 10 feet of road no wider than a hallway, footsteps soft in gravel. Then, all at once, the glow flared at the crest. For a moment, I thought it was over our roof, like he was walking on the car. I shut off the engine. We both held our breath. The glow turned and moved off into the woods, back the way he came. Jake exhaled. We got video and audio. Holy shit. I nodded, but unease pooled in my belly. This wasn't over. His presence was deep inside the car. He tapped our windows. He knew us. We sat for 10 minutes. Nothing. The night had reclaimed the road. We left. Neither of us spoke until we reached town. He pulled over in front of my apartment, engine off. I handed him a hot coffee. "Thank you." He smiled weakly. "5 takeaways?" He speaks, whispering my name from beyond the seat. He knows our patterns. Same spot, same ritual. He tests us. 3 taps. Traditional threshold motif. He's not alone. I'm him. His glow mirrored in the mirror inside us. Later that night, I listened to the recordings. The waveform hovered low, but between breaths, Mara, and then Jake. Distinct, imperfect, but clear, and always right before the taps. Folklore notes. The vanishing hitchhiker variant where ghosts echo names and leave physical evidence, garment, fingerprints, is documented in numerous tales. The serial tapping ritual echoes deeply supernatural, guardian thresholds. And the Green Man of Pennsylvania figure, Charlie No Face, was known to respond to flashlight signals or honks at tunnels. Some witnesses recalled hearing his voice, low, warbled, often repeating names. But hearing my name, that was new. Jake and I returned to the apartment later that night, adrenaline still pulsing in our veins. We refrained from editing the files until the morning. Between the whispered names and our racing hearts, exhaustion would only dull our senses. But we couldn't look away. In my spotlit study, I hovered over the footage again. The green glow shimmered just behind my head during playback. I scrubbed frame by frame. There it was, unmistakable. The faceless silhouette perched in the back seat. A soft scratching noise caught my attention, not from the audio feed, but from the door behind me. I froze. Jake was in the hallway, pacing. "Mara, did you hear that?" I didn't answer. I whispered, "It's in the room." Jake inched closer, flashlight sweeping the apartment. Nothing moved, but the air had thickened, electric and cold. My phone buzzed. An alert from my video editing app. One of the clips had auto-uploaded to the cloud, and someone viewed it. An IP trace pinged from Cedar Hollow. Jake swallowed. Someone watched it? I felt sick. Maybe, or someone else. We huddled over the laptop again. The timestamp read 2:19 and 43 seconds AM. In the reflection of the dashcam, I saw him right behind me. But when I spun around, nothing. The footage was soundless for that moment, until scratches echoed from the car doors. It hit me then, he wasn't just appearing. He was testing boundaries. First taps, now scratches on metal, digital intrusions and cloud presence. Jake whispered, "We need to leave this gear somewhere. Hide it." I nodded. We packed everything, camera, mics, flashlights, into a sealed bag. I took a deep breath. Okay, tomorrow night, final run. I woke in a cold sweat. It was morning, but dawn hadn't broken yet. Streetlight yellow streaks through my curtains. My phone vibrated. A notification, unusual activity detected. It was my cloud storage. Footage from my session had been downloaded overnight. The timestamp, 2:02 AM, before I was even awakened. My heart constricted. I grabbed my laptop and hurried to the study. Jake was already there, face white, eyes wide. "Another download," he whispered. "At 2:02 exactly. That's before we hit the crest." That's when I realized, whoever or whatever had been with us must be replaying it below my own roof. A thud sounded from the kitchen. I froze. I wasn't imagining it. Wood against tile, stealth footsteps. We followed the noise, slow and silent, through the apartment hallway. In the kitchen we found nothing, doors closed, cabinets shut. But in the living room, my heart sank. Behind the couch, small glowing footprints. Green, perfectly human-shaped, leading under the coffee table and ending by the window. Low hum. A soft voice, barely audible. "Mara." I shot a look at Jake. He held his breath. His phone's flashlight scanned the floor but didn't reach the prints. They glowed just enough. Audio suggestions. Heartbeat drum, vinyl room hush, whispered wind. The window opposite us rattled, no wind outside. Then, softly, on the window pane, tapping. Tap, tap, tap. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I pressed my ear to the glass. The foggy window reflected my face, and next to it, a pale glow. I recoiled. He was outside now. Jake flipped on the lamp. I yanked the curtains. It opened onto thick darkness and the faint shimmer of a figure retreating into the lawn. Our living room remained ice cold. I felt breath cling in the air. My phone chimed. A message popped up. I'm closer now. No number. No name. We bolted the door, pulled the curtains tight. My teeth chattered. Jake rang the landlord to ask if anything was odd downstairs. No. We spent the rest of the night recording. Libs of low-level green glow, distant whispers, scratching beneath floorboards, and the phone kept buzzing. Closer. Soon. Folklore insight. In many ghostly hitchhiker accounts, spirits follow their phantom drivers home, knocking at doors, whispering names, especially if they've connected. Charlie-type beings are said to haunt not only roads but also homes of those who call to them. We didn't sleep. I rarely left the room. Jake kept watch with an infrared cam aimed at the door and curtains. The green footprints faded by afternoon, but the buzzing grew. My blood ran raw. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Jake. We packed everything at dawn. Extra batteries, a thermal scope, digital recorder, salt, and 3 printed pages of protective Latin phrases I found online. Laughable, maybe, but after last night, superstition felt like survival. Jake loaded the car. I hesitated before stepping out, scanning the sidewalk for footprints. Nothing, but the morning was too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the stillness of something watching. We drove out of town and veered off onto Old Cedar Road one last time. But this time, we didn't stop at the crest. We parked deeper in, just before the forest turned dense. There was a rough trail where hikers claimed to have seen glimpses of him through trees. Stories of a tall, green-glowing man with no face, walking silently, vanishing at the turn of your head. I clutched the voice recorder and whispered my intro. Day 3. This is Mara and Jake. We're 20 minutes deep past the Cedar Crest. No cars, no lights. We're walking into the woods. Jake's camera light flicked on. The trees swallowed it whole. We pushed into the underbrush. Every few steps, I checked my 6. Nothing but tall pines and shadows. 30 feet in, I spotted something. Jake, left. Do you see it? There, leaning against a tree, a jacket. Torn, old, moss-bitten. On the shoulder, a stitched patch. Frank's Taxi, Wilton, PA. A missing cabbie. I remembered the article. 1997. Vanished picking up a passenger at 3 a.m. His car was found idling beside this same trail. Jake whispered, "Turn off the camera for a sec." I frowned. "Why?" He held up his phone. "Look." It was vibrating. No calls, just pulsing. And the compass was spinning wildly, as if it couldn't find north anymore. "Magnetic disturbance," he muttered. We pressed deeper. 10 more feet and we saw it, a clearing. Moonlight broke in long beams, and in the center stood a stone. A large carved slab surrounded by stacked rocks. A shrine? I crouched. The voice recorder buzzed. Static. But between the lines, a whisper. "You came back." I froze. "Jake, did you hear that?" He turned, eyes wide. "Yes, but..." He stopped, pointing. "Behind you, there, in the shadows of 2 trees, something moved. Green glow, soft but unmistakable, hovered 2 feet off the ground. Then it grew, rising, shaping itself into a tall silhouette. No face, just shimmer, and still. I stepped forward. We ran. I don't remember screaming, just the burn in my legs and Jake's wheezing. We burst through the trees, stumbled onto gravel. The car was right there. I slammed the door, heart thrashing. Jake was yelling. He'd dropped the camera. I didn't wait. I opened the door, jumped out, grabbed it, and just as I turned back, he was there, standing 10 feet from the car, still, watching. I lifted the lens to him. He vanished. We made it home at sunrise. Neither of us said a word until we reached the front door. Jake whispered, "He let us leave." I nodded, but I wasn't sure. The green shimmer stayed with me. I saw it in the corner of mirrors. the reflection from my microwave, even in the curve of my coffee cup. He had seen me, close, and he had let me run. But why? The drive back felt like emerging from anesthesia. Everything muffled, every color dimmed. The weight of the woods clung to me, soaked into my clothes, my skin, maybe even something deeper. Jake stayed silent. His knuckles gripped the steering wheel so tight his hands trembled. Neither of us had the nerve to speak until we pulled into my driveway. "We made it out," he finally whispered, as if saying it too loud would bring him back. I nodded, but my gut told me otherwise. Something felt unfinished. Around 11:30 p.m., I plugged the recovered camera into my laptop. The footage played. First static, then darkness, trees, the glint of moonlight, and then the shrine. I leaned closer. In one frame, just before the run, I saw myself turn to flee. But something was wrong. The camera caught the exact second I looked into the lens. But I never turned to face it. I hit rewind, watched again. My expression in the shot was frozen. Not terrified, not panicked, just blank. And behind me, almost invisible in the dark, a tall, faceless shape mirrored my posture, like a shadow mimicking every move. I scrubbed forward. Where was the running? The breathless sprint back to the car? It wasn't there. Instead, it cut to static. Then the car, engine on, interior lights flicking. Jake and I already inside, but no footage of us getting there. My stomach dropped. "We never ran," I whispered aloud. A soft thump sounded from my bedroom door. I crept down the hallway. Lights off, only my phone screen glowing. Another thump. I paused outside my door, pressed my ear against the wood. Nothing. But the air was cold, so cold my breath fogged. The doorknob was icy. I opened it slowly. Empty. But on my bed, where I'd left the recording device, was a small smear. A handprint. Green. Faint, but unmistakable. It hadn't followed me home. It had never left. Jake called 5 minutes later, breathless. "Check your mirror." "What?" "Your mirror. In the hallway. Look fast." I walked to it. First, just my face. Then, behind me, over my left shoulder, the shimmer. Faceless. Watching. I spun around. Nothing. My reflection, though, still showed two shapes. I slammed the mirror face down and covered it with a blanket. It started with the voicemail. At 2:44 a.m., Jake called me, except I never answered, because I was asleep. Or I thought I was. The voicemail played automatically when I woke. Static at first, then my own voice. "Mara, it's Jake. Why are you whispering?" More static. Then, "That's not funny. Stop. Mara, that's not your face." Then silence. I called him back. No answer. I left 5 messages. Nothing. Around noon, I drove to his apartment. The door was open. Not forced, just slightly ajar. That was enough to make my skin crawl. "Jake!" I stepped inside. The place was trashed. Papers, clothes, gear scattered like a storm hit it. But not a normal storm. The chaos was focused. Every mirror was cracked. The laptop smashed. His phone, screen shattered, was blinking with one word. "Liar." I checked the footage cards. Empty. All of them. But in the corner of his whiteboard, beneath layers of string and scribbles, were 2 sentences written in black marker. "It's using your face. Don't trust the reflection." Later that night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, heart pounding. I flicked the light on. Me. Just me. But something was wrong. I raised my right hand. My reflection did too, but slower. Off by half a second. I smiled. Didn't. I staggered back, breath catching. The reflection blinked. I didn't. I slammed the mirror cabinet shut. Inside, my pill bottle was turned upside down. A note tucked behind it. It read, "You left the forest, but it didn't leave you." Voice recorder entry, 1:06 a.m. I think he's inside now, not just in the house. Inside me, or something that looks like me. Jake said not to trust mirrors, but it's more than that. I think I've already been replaced. I began filming myself nonstop. comparing my voice patterns, watching for subtle shifts. On one video from earlier that day, I saw something that broke me. Me sitting at my desk, eating, normal, but for a 2-second glitch, my eyes, they flickered green, a soft shimmer around my pupils, barely noticeable unless you were watching frame by frame. The light wasn't from the window. Jake's final message arrived at 3:12 a.m., a single line of text. If you're still you, don't answer the door. As I read it, the knock came, 3 times, deliberate, measured, right on cue. The knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate raps on my front door. I stood frozen in the hallway, Jake's final text still glowing on my screen. If you're still you, don't answer the door. My body wanted to move. My mind screamed at me not to. But something else, something deeper, urged me forward, like a tug under the ribs. I tiptoed closer, barely breathing. No footsteps outside. No shadow under the door. Just stillness. And then my voice, from the other side. Mara, open up. It's me. Jake's hurt. No panic. No banging. Just soft, calm words. But I knew the way Jake sounded when he was scared. And I knew the way I sounded when I wasn't myself. I locked the door. I backed away, slowly, whispered to the recorder. It's mimicking me now, knows my voice, knows how I speak. It's gotten better, stronger, more real. Jake's gone. I know that now. It's just me. The voice outside grew quieter. I'll wait. I collapsed against the hallway wall, shivering. That's when I noticed the mirror again. The one I'd covered days ago. The blanket was on the floor. I looked up reflexively and saw myself, yes, but she didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Her eyes locked with mine, green, faint, dull as swamp light. Then she smiled, a long, inhuman smile that stretched too far across her face. I packed a bag, no tech, no glass, no mirrors. I left the house at sunrise, drove west. I didn't say goodbye, didn't leave a note, but I left the camera on the kitchen table, still recording. If anyone finds it, they'll see. They'll see the real me, or what used to be. I'm in a motel now, middle of nowhere. I use cash. I don't look at screens. I cover the bathroom mirror with towels. But sometimes, when I blink too long, I see myself move without me. So if you're driving alone some night, and you pass a glowing hitchhiker with no face, don't stop. Even if it looks like someone you know. Even if it looks like you, especially then. They say the forest doesn't want to be found. I didn't believe that when we drove up the long, winding road into Pine Ridge. The sun was low behind the trees, casting long shadows across the dirt path. Everything was quiet, too quiet, like the forest was holding its breath. There were 3 of us. Me, Avery Wild. I'm a photographer. I take nature shots for magazines, mostly. I don't scare easy. Rowan was my best friend from college. He loved ghost stories and hiking, always the first to laugh and the last to leave a party. Elena was a documentary filmmaker, smart, quiet, serious. She came for the forest sounds. She wanted to record the silence of nature, as she put it. We didn't bring any guns, just cameras, tents, food, and flashlights. We weren't stupid, we checked the weather. Clear skies, no bears reported in the area, no big cats, just endless trees and miles of wilderness. We set up camp deep in the forest, at a place marked on Rowan's old trail map. No cell service, no park rangers, just trees older than our grandparents and wind that whistled like it had a mouth. I'm telling you, Rowan said as we unpacked, there's something about this place. People say it's haunted. Elena rolled her eyes. People say everything's haunted. No, but seriously, Rowan insisted, hammering in a tense stake. Locals say the forest watches you. Like, literally watches you. I laughed. You believe in forest ghosts now? Rowan smiled, but didn't laugh back. Not ghosts. Something older. I didn't say anything. I just looked up at the trees. They were tall and packed close together like a wall. The way the branches swayed in the wind made them look like they were whispering to each other. We built a small fire, just enough to keep warm. The stars came out fast. The cold came faster. It was quiet at first. Then came the sounds. A rustle here, crack there, maybe a rabbit, maybe wind, but it didn't sound like animals. It sounded human, like someone trying not to be heard. I stared into the trees while Rowan told one of his stories. Something about a hiker who vanished in the 90s, leaving behind only a burned-out flashlight and an old boot. Elena didn't laugh. I didn't either. The fire popped. Something rustled again, this time closer. Rowan paused. "Did you hear that?" We all turned toward the trees. Silence. "Could be a deer," Elena whispered. Rowan picked up a flashlight and pointed it toward the sound. Trees. Just trees. Still, I felt something, like eyes on me. "I'm gonna go take a leak," Rowan said, heading into the dark. "Take your flashlight," I called. He waved it behind him and disappeared into the trees. I watched the beam flicker between trunks until it was gone. 5 minutes passed. 10. "Rowan," Elena called. No answer. I stood. "Stay here." I took my flashlight and followed the path he'd taken. The beam bounced off bark and branches. The forest felt too still, like it was listening. "Rowan," I called again. A twig snapped behind me. I turned fast. Nothing. I moved forward. Another snap, closer this time. My light flickered. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Crunching leaves. 1, 2, 3. Then nothing. I froze. The hair on my neck stood up. My mouth went dry. Another footstep, this one behind a tree maybe 5 feet away. I raised the light. No one. Then, Rowan's voice. "Avery." But it didn't sound right. Too quiet. Too calm. Still, I moved toward it. "Rowan, that you?" I rounded the tree. No one. Then a hand grabbed my shoulder. I jumped and spun around. It was Rowan, wide-eyed, breathing hard. "You okay?" I asked. "I got lost," he said. "Thought I heard you calling me." "I didn't," I said. "I thought you were calling me." We stared at each other. Neither of us spoke for a while. We went back to camp. Elena had already zipped herself inside her tent. Rowan and I sat by the dying fire. "You think someone's out there?" he asked. I shook my head. "Maybe." We didn't talk much after that. Just stared at the flames until they went out. I climbed into my sleeping bag. The tent felt smaller than before. The forest felt bigger. And as I drifted to sleep, I swore I heard it again. Footsteps. Soft. Slow. Circling the tent. 1, 2, 3. Then silence. I woke up just after 3 a.m. Not from a dream. Not from the cold. It was something else. The silence. It was too quiet. No bugs. No wind. No owls. Nothing. Just the soft sound of my own breath and the tight fabric of the tent creaking slightly in the cold air. I turned over in my sleeping bag and listened. And then I heard it. Rustle. A soft shuffle of leaves just outside the tent. Like someone dragging their foot through the dirt. I held my breath. Crunch. A footstep. Careful. Deliberate. Another. And another. They weren't fast. Just slow. Like whoever or whatever was out there didn't care if I heard them. They were circling. Once. Twice. I looked over at Rowan, who was curled up on the other side of the tent. He was still. Eyes closed. Breathing soft. I thought about waking him, but the footsteps stopped. Suddenly, dead silence again. I sat there for what felt like an hour, frozen in place, staring at the roof of the tent. Then I heard something else. A voice, so faint I couldn't tell what it was saying. But it came from the trees, and it sounded like it was trying to be quiet. It was a whisper, but not the kind two people share up close. No, this whisper was stretched, worn thin, like wind slipping through broken glass. And then I heard my name. Avery. Soft, almost kind. Then again, louder. Avery. Come out. It wasn't Rowan's voice. It wasn't Elena's either. I couldn't even tell if it was male or female. It just didn't sound real. I finally got the courage to unzip the tent. Just a few inches. Cold air poured in. My flashlight was beside me. I clicked it on and shined it through the crack. Trees. Stillness. No one. But just at the edge of the beam, I saw something. A shadow. Tall. Thin. It moved. Fast. Gone in a second. I yanked the zipper shut and locked it. Screw that. I didn't sleep after that. I just laid there listening, my ears ringing with the silence, waiting for another footstep, another whisper, another shadow. But it never came. Morning light finally broke through the tent's thin walls. I dragged myself out, eyes burning from lack of sleep. Rowan was making coffee over the fire. "You look like hell," he said. "I heard footsteps again," I said. "Last night, around the tent." He raised an eyebrow. "You sure it wasn't me?" I got up once to pee. "I'm sure," I said flatly. And I heard a voice that got his attention. He stood up, holding his coffee cup. "What kind of voice?" "I don't know," I said. "Didn't sound human. Or didn't sound normal. Said my name. Twice." Rowan didn't laugh. That's what got me. He usually jokes, makes fun, lightens the mood. But he didn't this time. Instead, he said, "Did it ask you to come outside?" I froze. "Yeah," I said slowly. "How did you?" He nodded. "It asked me too. Last night, around 1:30. I thought it was a dream." We looked at each other. Neither of us smiled. Elena finally climbed out of her tent. She looked tired too. "Either of you whispering creepy stuff last night?" she asked, half joking. That's when I knew we all heard something. After breakfast, we hiked out to get some new footage. I tried to shake the fear. I told myself it was just wind, or dreams, or maybe someone camping nearby trying to mess with us. But we hadn't seen a single other person in miles. And this place wasn't even on most maps. It wasn't until we got back to the tents that things got worse. Rowan's tent was ripped down the side. Not torn from wind. Not a bear claw. Cut. Clean. Almost perfect. Like someone had used a blade. Inside, his sleeping bag was untouched. But his flashlight was missing. And in the dirt outside the tent, a single footprint. Barefoot. No shoe treads. No sock fuzz. Just a long, pale, five-toed print in the soil. Fresh. No one said anything for a long time. Elena finally whispered, "Let's go home." Rowan looked at me. "We leave now, we'll have to hike back in the dark." He was right. The sun was already dipping low, and we were deep in the woods. I checked the GPS. Nothing. No signal. "We wait till morning," I said. "We stay together. No one leaves the tent alone. No matter what." They nodded, but I could see it in their eyes. We were all thinking the same thing. Something was out there. Something was watching us, and it wanted us to come out. We spent the rest of the day pretending we were okay. Rowan tried fixing his tent with duct tape. Elena recorded some birdsong, even though her hands were shaking. I cleaned the footprint off the dirt, like wiping away proof would make it all go away. But as the sun dipped behind the trees, everything changed again. The forest felt different, thicker, heavier, like something was settling in around us, just beyond the reach of our eyes. We built a bigger fire that night. No one said it, but we were all thinking the same thing. Don't let it go out. We sat close, eating cold snacks, watching the trees. Not a single sound from the forest. It was like nature had stepped back to make room for something else. Something wrong. Rowan broke the silence. "What if it's not a person?" Elena looked up from her audio recorder. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then said, "What if it's something old? Something that doesn't want us here?" No one laughed. Elena shut her recorder off. "You saw how clean that cut was on your tent, Rowan. That wasn't some creature with claws." I said, "Yeah, but what leaves a barefoot print in the middle of the woods, in the cold, in the dark?" Silence. Then Rowan whispered, "Something that doesn't care about cold, or shoes, or being seen." I didn't sleep much the night before. Tonight, I knew I wouldn't sleep at all. Around 11:50 p.m., we all got into the same tent, Rowan's. We figured strength in numbers. Better than being picked off one by one. We zipped the door, locked it, turned off our flashlights, and waited. I watched the red glow of Rowan's watch as the minutes crawled by. 11:59, 12 o'clock, 12:01, and then the footsteps came. Soft, measured, deliberate. Crunch, 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 right outside. They stopped, then circled the tent. Once, twice, 3 times. I held my breath. The others did too. Then came the voice. Same whisper, same strange tone, like a thought spoken from just behind your skull. Avery. It lingered, dragged out, cold and smooth, like ice melting across your skin. Then it said another name. Elena. Then Rowan. None of us moved. It laughed, low, dry, like leaves blowing over a tombstone. Then the zipper moved, just an inch. I nearly screamed, but Rowan grabbed my arm and shook his head. The zipper stopped. Nothing happened. Then the footsteps again, but this time they ran, fast, all around the tent, circling, sprinting, and then stopped dead. The forest went completely silent again. No breath, no wind, no voice, just that awful, buzzing quiet. We didn't speak until morning. When we crawled out of the tent, the fire was out, and in the ash, drawn with a finger, was a symbol, a circle with an X carved through the center. Elena stared at it. What is that? Rowan shook his head, but I knew. I didn't know how or why, but I'd seen it before. In a dream, a nightmare, something buried deep. The symbol felt old, angry, like a warning from something that didn't speak our language, but still wanted to be understood. Something that wanted us gone. We packed that morning in silence. The forest didn't make a single sound. No birds, no insects, no wind, like it was watching, waiting. As I zipped my bag, I found something in the corner of the tent. A footprint. Another one. Inside this time. Just one. Pressed into the nylon floor. Perfect. Bare. Facing me. We hiked in silence that morning. No jokes. No songs. No stops. We just wanted out. The trail felt longer than it had coming in. Like it was stretching, winding tighter around us, folding back on itself. Rowan kept checking the compass. It spun. Always north, then suddenly east. Then it just stopped moving altogether. He smacked it. Nothing. I think we're lost, he finally said. Elena wiped sweat from her brow. How? We followed this exact path coming in, but it didn't feel the same. The trees were different, closer, more tangled, like they'd shifted while we slept. At around noon, we came to a fork in the trail that hadn't been there before. 2 paths, one narrow and dark, disappearing into thick pine. The other wider, leading uphill with an odd shape in the distance, something standing at the top. Rowan raised his binoculars. Then he froze. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer. I took the binoculars from his hands and looked through. There was a man standing at the top of the hill, motionless. He wore a torn gray coat, too long for his legs. His arms hung strangely at his sides, like they weren't fully attached. But the worst part, his face was wrong, or rather, there wasn't one. Just smooth, pale skin stretched over where his features should be, like clay before it's carved. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just blank, empty flesh. And yet, he was looking at us. I felt it in my bones. We're going the other way, Elena whispered. Rowan nodded fast. We took the narrow trail, ducking under branches, feet crunching over roots and dry needles. No one looked back, but I felt him there, watching, not moving, just waiting. We hiked for what felt like hours. The air was colder now. The trees started to look the same, repeating, looping. We passed the same crooked tree with the 3 trunks at least twice. Finally, Elena said it. We're going in circles. Rowan slumped to the ground, frustrated. This is messed up. This isn't normal woods. I sat beside them, trying to breathe. That's when I heard it again. The whisper, faint. This time it wasn't calling names. It was singing, a slow, broken lullaby. Words I didn't know. but the melody made my skin crawl. Came from above. We all looked up. There he was, in the trees, perched like a bird, his body bending the wrong way to grip the branches. Still no face, still too tall. He didn't move, just stared without eyes. Then something smiled across his blank skin. A crack formed where his mouth should be, long and slow and wide. No lips, just a red slit, like a wound opening. Then he whispered, "I see you." We ran. No plan, no path, just forward. Branches tore at our faces. Thorns ripped our clothes. I didn't care. I just ran until my legs gave out. We collapsed near a dry creek bed, panting. I looked around. He was gone, but I still felt his presence, like the forest itself was humming with it. "We need to get out," I said. "We're not just being followed. We're being played with." Rowan nodded. "It's a trap. This place, it doesn't want us to leave." Elena, still shaking, pointed at the dirt by the creek bed. Another symbol, the circle with the X, freshly drawn in the sand. We hadn't made it, and then just beside it, footprints. There, a whole line of them, walking up the dry stream like someone had strolled through just minutes before. Only, there were no other signs of life. No movement, no sound, and no trail, just silence, and trees, and the watching. The silence in the creek bed wasn't natural. Felt thick, like we were standing underwater. Everything muffled, every breath slow and heavy. The air smelled strange, like damp stone and rotting wood. And the footprints, they didn't make sense. They led up the dry stream, one after the other. Long bare, deep in the dirt, but there were no return steps. Whoever, whatever made them had vanished, just disappeared. Rowan touched one of the prints with his hand. "Still warm," he said. "This was recent, like minutes ago." I swallowed hard. "Why warm?" He didn't answer. We followed the prints anyway. I don't know why. Maybe because standing still felt worse. Maybe we thought they'd lead out. They didn't. They led deeper. We walked for another hour, maybe more. The sky was starting to dim again, like the trees were swallowing the sun early. The further we followed the prints, the weirder things got. The trees began to bend, subtly, all leaning in the same direction, as if bowing toward something. Toward him, the air buzzed, like 100 distant whispers tangled together, just low enough to make your head hurt. And then we heard the first voice, clear, sharp, right behind us. "Turn around." I spun, flashlight up. Nothing. The trees. Still. Rowan froze. "You guys heard that too, right?" Then another voice off to our left. This one softer, familiar. "Avery, help me." I turned to Elena. "That sounded like my sister." She stared back. "But your sister's not here." Exactly. More voices came, whispers from every direction. Some we didn't recognize. Others were twisted copies of people we loved. "Elena, come closer." "Rowan, remember the lake? Don't be scared. You were always going to die here." Each voice had a different tone. Some gentle, some angry, some laughing, and always one lower than the rest. Deeper, almost a growl. Not a voice at all. More like something ancient learning how to speak. We stopped moving when we reached the rock. A massive black stone, cracked in the center, like something had struck it hard. Around it, more of the same symbols carved into the dirt. The circle, the X, all around us now. 10 of them, 20, surrounding the stone like a ritual. And above the stone, tied between two trees with thick rope, was Rowan's flashlight, hung by its strap, gently swinging. It flickered on, then off, then on again. Then we heard it. Footsteps, fast, heavy, racing toward us from the woods. Elena screamed. I dropped to the ground behind the stone. Rowan grabbed a branch, ready to swing, but nothing came out of the trees. Instead, the sounds of running stopped just behind us. And then something breathed, long, wet, close enough I could feel the warmth on my neck. I turned slowly, nothing there, but the ground where I'd been kneeling was damp. A single word whispered in my left ear. One word, so close it felt like it came from inside my head. Stay. Elena pulled me up. We need to go. We sprinted out of the creek bed. Didn't follow any path. Didn't look back. We just ran. Branches slashed at my arms. My legs screamed. But I didn't stop until we were somewhere new. An open clearing. The first we'd seen in days. White. Grass flattened like something had slept there recently. And in the center, another tent. Not ours. Old. Beige. Covered in moss. Zipper broken. Empty. I stepped inside. And what I saw chilled me deeper than anything yet. Inside was a sleeping bag. Half-zipped. Beside it, a journal. I picked it up. On the cover, Avery M. My name. But it wasn't my handwriting. Inside were pages of notes, drawings, symbols, footprint sketches, descriptions of voices, timelines, and one final page in messy ink near the back. It read, "If you're reading this, it's already too late. You followed the footsteps, just like I did, just like we all did." I stared at the journal for a long time. My name, my handwriting, but not mine. Some of the entries looked familiar, like things I dreamed or thought in passing. But they were written down, with dates, like they had happened, like someone else had lived through them, or like I had in some other version of me. Rowan and Elena waited outside the tent. I could see them through the thin fabric, standing still, breathing hard, watching the trees. I flipped to a page near the middle. There was a drawing, a figure standing among trees. Long arms, no face, feet bare, tall, wrong. Under it was one word, scrawled over and over in shaky letters. Listener, listener, listener. I turned the page. More symbols. The circle with the X. A note below it. This mark means you've been heard. You are not lost. You are collected. I dropped the journal. Couldn't breathe. I ran out of the tent, waving the book. Someone's been here. Someone like us. Rowan took it, flipping through. What the hell? Elena pointed to the sky. Guys! We looked up. The sun was gone again, but not just set. It had vanished. The sky was an unnatural gray-green, swirling like fog underwater. And the trees around the clearing were different now. Taller, older, closer. The camp was shrinking, or the forest was growing. We decided to keep moving. Staying in that camp felt worse than moving forward. We walked in silence again, but the journal stayed in my hands, tight against my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling it was written for me. We made it to another trail. This one was almost hidden under roots and moss. As we followed it, we passed things we shouldn't have. A rusty canteen with Elena's initials scratched into the side. A sock Rowan swore he lost 2 days ago. And then, Polaroid, lying in the dirt. I picked it up. It was a photo of us, all three of us, standing by a fire, smiling, but the background was wrong. The trees behind us weren't trees. They were figures, tall, still, faceless, watching. We didn't talk after that. What could we say? That the forest was folding time? Showing us things that hadn't happened yet, or had, in another life? Or worse, that he was playing with us? At dusk, or what passed for it, we found a sign. Old, wooden, half buried in moss. It said, Camp Hollow, EST 1962, home of the listeners. Underneath, smaller letters had been carved in, "Once you're heard, you're never alone again." Rowan read it aloud. Elena shivered. Then I noticed something at the base of the sign. Another footprint, bare, deep, and facing the sign, like someone had stood here, watching, reading it, before vanishing again. Rowan crouched beside it. He looked at me. "This is all a loop," he said. "It's not just a forest. It's a trap, a feeding ground." Elena said it out loud, what we were all thinking. We're not lost. We're being kept. That night, we camped again. We had no choice. Too dark to move. Too dangerous to stay in one place, but too tired to fight it. We didn't build a fire. We didn't speak. We just lay in silence, listening, waiting. And when the first footstep came, just after midnight, we didn't even react. We knew. The listener had come back. He circled once, twice, then stopped right outside the tent. He didn't speak. He didn't call our names. He just stood there, and we heard it. A second set of footsteps, lighter, quicker, like a child's. Then a third, then more, 10, 15, maybe more. A whole crowd, moving slowly, forming a ring. Whispers began, and in the center of them all one voice, low, firm, inside my skull. 3 heard, 3 remain. Then all at once the voices stopped. No one moved. The forest went silent. But I knew what it meant. We were being counted, marked, cataloged, and soon something would decide what to do with us. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. We lay in the tent, barely breathing, listening to the invisible crowd outside. The footsteps came and went, slow, measured, like they were pacing around us, guarding us. At some point, Rowan whispered, "I think we're in a cage." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, but he wasn't. We weren't guests in this place. We were specimens. At dawn, or what looked like it, we stepped out of the tent. No footprints in the dirt. No broken branches. Nothing. It was like the forest had covered its tracks. But I remembered what the voice said. 3 heard. 3 remain. It sounded like a warning, or a rule. 3 of us still alive. Still available. We walked without a plan. The journal was tucked into my bag, but I could feel it pressing against me like a heartbeat. I flipped it open now and then, skimming random pages. One entry stuck with me. They don't take you right away. They watch. They listen. The collector chooses when it's time. I didn't know who the collector was, but I had a feeling we were about to find out. Around mid-morning, we came to a narrow valley between 2 steep ridges. A dead zone. Trees thin and crooked. Ground cracked and dry. No animals. No wind. At the center of the valley was a wooden platform, maybe 10 feet across. An altar, old, darkened by age and rain. Bones scattered around it, small ones. Animals, we hoped. On the platform stood a single object. A mirror, tall, framed in twisted branches. It didn't reflect anything, just gray static, like a broken screen. Rowan approached first against our warnings. He stood in front of it. Then he froze. "Guys," he said, "come look." I joined him. Elena stayed back. When I looked into the mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw a room, stone walls, candlelight flickering, and inside that room were rows of people, all standing, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams, their skin pale, their bodies stiff, and in the middle of them, watching, moving slowly between the rows, was him. The faceless man, taller now, leaner, and something trailed behind him. A long black robe made of fabric? No, hair. Human hair. Dozens of lengths of it woven together. Still damp, still clinging. And as he walked, he touched each frozen person on the forehead, marking them like he was checking inventory. Rowan backed away. "That's where we're going," he said. "No," Elena said. "That's where we're stored." We left the altar behind, shaken. I couldn't unsee their faces. Not screaming, not blinking, just stuck, trapped in some forever room with no windows, no time. "Maybe that's what happens," I whispered. "Maybe we don't die. We just get taken out of the world." "Collected," Rowan muttered. That night, the forest changed again. The trees were too close. Every path led back to the clearing with the mirror. We stopped trying to escape. We knew what this was. The final day. The choosing. At dusk, we heard the call. A sound so low, it rattled our ribs. It didn't come from any direction. It came from under us. And the ground beneath our feet began to hum. Vibrating. Buzzing. And then something began to rise. A figure. Not from behind a tree, not from the mist. From the dirt. It lifted out of the ground like smoke turning solid. First the arms, long skeletal, then the torso, wrapped in that same robe of hair, then the head, blank, smooth, no features, but this time, there were holes where his eyes should be. not eyes, windows. Looking into them made my vision tilt, like I was falling, like I could see the frozen people inside. And then he spoke, not out loud, inside us. You have walked far. You have been heard. You may leave, or stay. We didn't respond. He reached out his hand. Inside his palm was something small, a coin. On one side, a circle. On the other, the X. Flip, the voice said. Elena stepped forward. What happens if it lands on X? You join the others. And the circle? You forget. Forget? He nodded slowly, as if understanding was painful for him. You forget all of it. The forest, the voices, the watching. You go home. You sleep, but you carry the mark. And one day you'll hear footsteps, and you'll return. None of us moved. Then Rowan stepped forward. He took the coin. He flipped. It spun in the air, slow, floating longer than it should have. Then dropped, landed in the dirt. Circle. The faceless man stepped back. Rowan gasped. His eyes rolled. He collapsed. I rushed to him. He was breathing, still alive. But when he woke, he didn't remember anything. Not the hike, not the tent, not me, just the forest, and the feeling of being watched. The man turned to Elena, held out the coin. She shook her head. I'm not flipping. The man tilted his head, then stepped toward her. Slow, relentless. She screamed, and I jumped in between them. No! I grabbed the coin from the dirt and flipped it again. Not for me, for her. It landed. The forest pulsed, and Elena vanished. Gone. No sound, no light, no time, just gone. The collector turned to me. Last one. Choose, he whispered. I looked at the coin in my hand. It burned, and I knew whatever I picked, I wouldn't walk away clean. I stared at the coin in my palm, pulsed with warmth, like a living thing. The side with the circle seemed to shimmer. The X looked darker, heavier. The collector stood silently in front of me, not moving, not breathing, waiting. I looked over at Rowan, still unconscious, his chest rising and falling like he was in a deep sleep. He didn't even flinch when I called his name. He wasn't here anymore. Not really. And Elena? Gone. No goodbye. No scream. No flash of light. Just erased. One flip, and she was removed like a bookmark from a story that was never hers. I backed away from the collector. I'm not flipping it. The faceless head tilted, slow and stiff. You must. No. You made us walk into this trap. You watched us, played with us. You came willingly, the voice said. You heard the whispers. You followed. You stepped into the old woods. That was your offering. No one warned us. Everyone is warned, the voice said again. You just forget. I looked down at the coin. Was that true? Did I somehow know this place before? Was I drawn to it because it remembered me? The wind began to shift around us. The trees swayed, even though there was no breeze. The forest didn't want me to wait. The collector took a step closer. I tightened my grip on the coin. Why do you need us? We do not need. We keep. We store what the world discards. The lonely, the curious, the forgotten. Those who wander into shadow. Those who listen. His words echoed inside my skull, not like speech but memory. I looked down at my feet. The ground beneath me wasn't dirt anymore. It was faces, faint, dozens of them, eyes closed, mouth slightly open, all buried just beneath the surface. I gagged, stumbling back. You collect us like toys, like books. You are pages in a larger story. We are the shelf. He stepped forward again, his faceless head now just inches from mine. Even without features, I could feel him watching me, waiting for my choice. The coin burned hotter now. My hand shook. I looked at Rowan. If I flipped and got the circle, I'd forget, like him, go home. But that wasn't freedom. It was delay. The mark would still be on me. I'd just be asleep, waiting for my turn again. The coin wasn't a mercy. It was a leash. And the X, that wasn't death. That was filing. Being locked away in the mirror room forever. Eyes open, silent, frozen, used, trapped. Neither was truly a choice. Why give us the coin if the outcome's the same? I asked. The collector paused. Choice creates illusion. Illusion makes you calm. I laughed. A bitter, broken sound. It all made sense now. The whispers, the markings, the mirrored trap. It wasn't about horror. It was about compliance. Keep the mind distracted long enough, and it walks itself into the cage. I dropped the coin. No! The forest stopped moving. The collector straightened. The air grew thick, pressing against my chest. No, I nodded. No flip, no deal. I don't accept your rules. The wind screamed. Trees twisted. The air split with a sound like tearing fabric. And for the first time, the collector moved. Not slow, not dreamlike, fast. He lunged, a blur of darkness and shadow. I dove to the side, rolled behind a tree, and ran. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just moved. Branches slashed my face. Roots tried to trip me. The forest howled behind me. But I didn't stop. Not this time. I ran until my legs burned, until my lungs clawed at my chest. And then I saw it. Light, faint, golden. A break in the trees. A shape ahead, wide. Metal. A road. I burst through the brush and collapsed on asphalt. The forest didn't follow. It ended at the tree line like a wall of glass. I turned back. No collector. No coin. Just silence. And then, a whisper. You chose. We will wait. I lay there for hours, until headlights found me. A trucker pulled over. Said he nearly hit me. I climbed in. He asked where I was from. I couldn't answer. I had no name for what I'd just lived. He gave me water, took me into town. I was safe, but not free, because in the pit of my stomach, I knew the forest hadn't let me go. It had just filed me differently. That night, I slept for the first time in days. And sometime near midnight, I heard them again. Soft, slow, circling my bed. Phantom footsteps. The dreams came first. Or maybe they weren't dreams. At night, I'd close my eyes, and I'd be there again. Standing in the clearing, the mirror before me, the collector behind. Each time, the mirror changed. Sometimes it showed Rowan, still asleep, sitting in a train station with no clocks, smiling but empty. Other times, it showed Elena, frozen mid-scream. Tears streaked down a face that would never blink again. And sometimes, it showed me, not as I was, but as I'd become, pale, stiff, lifeless, filed. After 3 nights of this, I stopped sleeping. I paced the small motel room in circles. I couldn't explain where I'd been or what happened to me. I told the police a vague story about getting lost while hiking. They believed me, kind of. A ranger later said, "That forest eats people." I laughed, because I knew the truth. Collected them. One morning, I found something under my motel pillow. The coin. Still warm. Still marked. Still mine. I hadn't brought it with me. I never touched it again after I dropped it. Yet there it was, sitting perfectly still as though waiting for another flip. I stared at it for hours. Was it a threat? A reminder? Or a timer? A week passed. Every night I heard them. The footsteps. Not loud. Not fast. But steady. Always circling. I left the TV on. The lights too. It didn't matter. At 3:03 a.m. sharp, the footsteps came. And each time they got closer. By the second week, the mirror appeared. Not in the motel. Not in the real world. In my reflection. Every time I passed a glass surface, windows, screens, even puddles, I saw it there. That ancient, gnarled frame. That screen of static. And something inside it moving, watching me. One night, I caught my own reflection blinking out of sync. I stepped closer to the bathroom mirror. And in the fogged glass behind me, I saw shelves, rows of bodies, frozen, and one space, still empty, my space, waiting. I packed my bag and left town. I thought if I kept moving, I could outrun whatever this was. I slept in the back of buses, rented one-night hostels, wandered aimlessly from city to city. But no matter how far I went, It followed. The footsteps, the mirror, the coin, and now new things too. Voices behind doors that weren't there. Cold air pressing against my spine in closed rooms. A clicking sound when I blinked too slowly. I started to feel like I wasn't me anymore, like I was being overwritten. Then the dream changed. One night, I didn't see the mirror. I woke up inside it, standing on that endless stone floor with all the others, their mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide, and between them, floating like a ghost through fog, the collector. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just turned his head toward me, slow, so slow. And then I realized this wasn't a dream. This was the preview, a memory of the future. I woke up screaming. I was soaked in sweat, coin clenched in my fist. It had burned me. I checked my palm. Red, blistered, the circle branded into my skin. The mark, the leash, the call. I ran to the motel mirror, smashed it, but the reflection didn't break. Smiled, not a mouth, just a shift in the shape. The glass shimmered, and I saw my own hand inside it, reaching toward me, trying to pull me back. I knew what I had to do. Go back. Finish it. I hitchhiked my way to the edge of the forest. Same place, same twisted trees. The coin buzzed in my pocket the moment my foot touched the grass. And then I saw it. Path. Not the one we took before. A new one. Just for me. Carved in silence. Lined with shadows. I walked. Hours passed. Or maybe seconds. The forest was quieter now. Not dead. Just listening. Waiting. At the end of the trail was the clearing. The altar. And the mirror. This time it reflected nothing at all. Just blackness. And in the middle of that void, the collector. But now he had a face. The mirror stood before me like a doorway made of still water, perfectly smooth, reflecting only darkness. No wind, no sound. Even the trees held their breath. The collector's face, my face, stared back from the center of the mirror. It wasn't perfect. The eyes were wrong. Too wide, too hungry. The smile stretched a little too far. But it was mine. Twisted, warped, waiting. I stepped forward. The grass under my feet didn't bend. It just vanished, like I was walking on memory. Why me? I asked. My voice didn't echo. It was absorbed, swallowed by the air. The collector tilted his head, my head, and opened his mouth. You listened. Just 2 words. So simple, so final. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the coin. Still warm, still pulsing. The circle shimmered. The X bled darkness. Is this the last flip? I whispered. There is no last. There is only acceptance. I closed my fingers around the coin. I should have flipped it, should have made a choice. But I already knew the truth. There was no choice. There never had been. Suddenly, the forest behind me groaned. Every branch bending at once. Every tree leaning inward like a crowd of watchers. The mirror rippled. The collector took a step forward, and I felt something inside me snap. A thread, a string I hadn't noticed before, tethering me to the world I came from. Gone. I gasped. I turned to run, but there was no forest anymore. Just shelves, infinite, stretching beyond sight. Bodies, millions, lined up in silence. Their eyes stared straight ahead, unblinking. Their faces twisted mid-scream, or frozen mid-laugh, or weeping. Time had stopped here, or maybe time had never been allowed. The collector raised his hand. I felt my body lift from the ground, weightless, limp, like my bones had been taken away, like I was a puppet whose strings were now in someone else's hands. And then I was floating toward the mirror, pulled me like a magnet pulls steel. My fingers stretched forward. My reflection reached back. And then our hands touched. The glass wasn't solid. It was warm, wet, like touching skin stretched too thin. I felt everything. The stories trapped inside. The memories stolen. The voices, dozens, hundreds, screaming inside the shelves. Some begged, some whispered, some laughed. And then I was inside, standing between rows of mirrors. Each one showed someone else's moment of fear. a flashlight failing in the woods, a shadow moving across a baby monitor, a whisper from a closet door just as it creaked open. The fear was the price. The filing was the consequence. And I was a librarian now. The collector turned and walked down the aisle. I followed. I didn't even mean to. My feet moved on their own. We passed by a familiar face. Rowan, still on the train station bench, still dreaming, a coffee cup balanced on his knee. We passed Elena, her eyes closed, a single tear halfway down her cheek. I reached for her, but my hand passed through the glass. Untouchable, unreachable, filed. We stopped before an empty mirror. It was mine. I saw my reflection inside it, waiting, smiled. I didn't. It raised a hand. I tried to resist, but my body mirrored the motion. Like I was the reflection now. I stepped forward. My foot touched the glass, and suddenly, I was behind it. The world became still. No more breath, no more heartbeat, only awareness. I could see the others, hear their thoughts, fragments of moments stuck on repeat. Screams, laughs, prayers, the sound of phantom footsteps pacing around the tent of my mind. I don't know how long I've been here. Years? Minutes? Time isn't real in the mirror room. Only fear is. But I know this. Someone will come again. They'll hear whispers. They'll follow shadows. They'll bring friends. And when they enter the clearing, they'll see the coin. They'll think they're choosing. They're not. They never were. Because I'll be there now, watching from behind the mirror. And when they see me, they'll think I look familiar. I remember the exact moment I found the letter. It was just past 11:30 p.m. on a Thursday night, and I had just gotten back from the library. The campus was unusually quiet. No music blasting through dorm windows, no drunken laughter trailing down the halls. Just that uncomfortable kind of stillness that presses against your ears, like the world is holding its breath. I pushed open the door to my dorm room, tossed my bag on the chair, and turned toward my bed. And that's when I saw it. A single envelope. Black. No stamp. No name. Just placed there. Waiting. I stared at it for a long second, then slowly picked it up. The paper was thick. Cold to the touch. The handwriting across the front was careful, old-fashioned even, like it belonged to a different century. Come to the woods at midnight. Come alone. No signature. No explanation. My heart gave a small, sharp beat in my chest. First, I thought it had to be a joke. Some fraternity prank, maybe. We had a bunch of weird societies on campus, some barely known outside their tight-knit groups. I wasn't part of any of them. I barely spoke to anyone, to be honest. My roommate, Jonah, would have loved this kind of thing. But Jonah dropped out 2 weeks ago. No one really knew why. One day, he was here eating instant noodles in bed and watching bad horror movies. The next morning, his half of the room was empty. All his stuff gone. No note, no goodbye, just gone. I sat on the bed, turning the envelope over in my hands. It had no return address, nothing inside except the one sentence. I even held it up to the light, looking for a watermark or some hidden message. Nothing, just those 8 words. Come to the woods at midnight. Come alone. It was stupid. I should have thrown it away. But instead, I placed it carefully in my desk drawer and stared out the window at the edge of the campus where the trees started. I'd never gone out there before, but I'd heard stories. Back in orientation week, a senior named Rachel told us that people went missing in those woods. Not often, just once every couple years. No police reports, no real investigations, just a name whispered and then forgotten. She called it the Circle. I'd laughed then, thought she was just trying to freak out the freshmen. Now I wasn't so sure. 11:55 p.m. I was still awake, still staring at the woods through the blinds. It was one of those nights where the darkness outside looked too thick, like something was hiding behind it. The wind barely moved. Even the trees looked like they were waiting. Before I could stop myself, I was putting on my hoodie and sliding on my sneakers. I told myself I wouldn't go far, just enough to see if anyone else was out there. Maybe it was a prank. Some scavenger hunt for weird kids trying to feel like part of something. I didn't tell anyone I was going. I didn't even bring my phone. I just grabbed the letter again, tucked it into my pocket, and slipped out the back door of the dorm. The campus was a ghost town. A few yellow windows glowed in the distance, but no one was outside. The moment I stepped onto the grass, the air felt colder, thicker somehow, like I was walking underwater. My footsteps were too loud. As I reached the edge of the trees, I hesitated. I hadn't really planned to go in, but now I saw something, a light, small, flickering, like a torch, farther down the path. I turned back, looked at the dorm, just 100 steps away. I turned again toward the woods. The light was still there, moving slowly, almost waiting, and I felt something, not fear, not yet, just pull, like the letter was tugging at something inside me I hadn't realized was loose. I stepped forward, one foot, then the other. The trees swallowed me whole. Inside, the woods were nothing like I expected. No rustling, no distant animal cries, no branches cracking underfoot, just silence, and that flickering light up ahead. I followed it, deeper and deeper, the trees growing thicker, the night darker. The path didn't feel like a trail, felt carved, cut just for this. For me, the light grew larger, closer. Then finally I saw them, figures, 6 or 7 people standing in a wide clearing around a massive stone. A fire burned in the center, tall, steady, but not crackling. The flames barely moved, as if afraid of making noise. The people wore masks, not cheap ones either. These were wooden, hand-carved, smooth and polished with wide hollow eyes. No one spoke, no one moved. I stood at the edge of the clearing, breath catching in my throat. And then one of them turned, faced me, raised a hand slowly, and beckoned. That's when I should have run, but I didn't. Instead, I stepped forward, crossing into the clearing, and the fire grew a little higher, like it had been waiting for me. The moment I crossed into the clearing, the fire pulsed like a living thing. None of the masked people said a word. They simply stood in a half circle around the flames, their heads turning slowly toward me as I stepped into the light. Up close, the masks were even more disturbing. Smooth, pale wood with faint carvings just above the brows. Each one different. One had twisted spirals. Another, a jagged symbol that almost looked like a tree with eyes. And none of them had mouths. Just hollow, silent faces staring at me. I swallowed. Is this some kind of club? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. The wind picked up slightly, brushing leaves across the dirt in little circles. Then finally, one of the masked people stepped forward. A girl, about my age, with long dark hair that curled beneath her hood. Her voice was soft, but clear. You received the invitation. That means you were chosen. I hesitated. Chosen for what? She tilted her head. To witness, to remember, to return. Another person in the circle spoke, this one a deep, hushed male voice. This is not the first night, and it will not be the last. You're one of us now. They spoke in phrases, like lines from a poem or a prayer. Another stepped forward, this one holding a small leather-bound book. He opened it, pages crackling like dead leaves. He didn't read aloud. He just held it open and extended it toward me. I took a step back. I think maybe I'm in the wrong place. There are no wrong places, the girl said. Only wrong times. And this is not one. Before I could protest, she removed her mask, and my breath caught. It was Jade. We had 2 classes together, intro to psych and biolab. She always sat in the front, always wore her hair in that same tight bun, always avoided eye contact. But now, standing here in the woods, her eyes glowed faintly orange in the firelight. You're in on this. She nodded slowly. I didn't believe it either the first night, but then I came back, and things started making sense. What things? She glanced at the others, then back at me. Her voice lowered. Dreams, memories, names I shouldn't know, places I've never been. I know what this is. I know why we're here. You will too. Back in my dorm the next morning, everything felt off. Too quiet, too bright, like someone had turned the saturation up on the world and broken something in the process. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the fire, the masks, that weird book they made me touch. They didn't ask me to do much, just to listen. One of them recited a name, Daniel Rowe, class of 1983. Then they all whispered the same phrase in unison. Witnessed, remembered, returned. I don't know why that stuck with me, but it did. The next day, I searched our school archives. There was a Daniel Rowe. He disappeared during his senior year. His roommate told police that Daniel just walked into the woods one night and never came back. I kept the letter in my back pocket, folded and creased now. I take it out between classes, staring at the handwriting like it might change. Jade passed me in the hallway once. No smile, no wave, just a nod, like she was watching, waiting. I started noticing others too. A guy from my economics lecture with a mark just below his ear, a small triangle etched into the skin. A girl in the cafeteria who always sat alone, drawing spirals on napkins. Once you start seeing them, it's hard to unsee them. They were everywhere, walking among us. The whispers started 3 days later. First in the shower. I thought it was just the plumbing, that faint sound of water running behind the walls. But then I heard it in the library too, and again outside under a tree near the science building. Low, soft, a single phrase repeated. Remember, return, remember, return. I thought I was losing my mind. Then I bumped into Lucas. Another freshman, tall, always wearing headphones, never really talked to anyone. But this time he looked pale, sweaty. He pulled me aside and said, "Hey, did you get a black envelope last week?" My blood went cold. He looked scared. I went out there. The fire, the masks. I left early. Red. But they still follow me. I see them in windows, in mirrors. He grabbed my arm hard. They mark you, even if you leave. That night, Lucas withdrew from school, or so the administration said. But his room was locked, lights still on, and I never saw him again. By the 5th day, I stopped questioning what was happening. I knew there'd be another gathering, another midnight, another circle, and even though every part of my body screamed stay away, I knew I'd go back, because the moment I entered that firelit clearing, something had latched onto me, something that didn't plan to let go. I didn't sleep again. I tried, closed my eyes, pulled the blanket over my head like a kid scared of monsters. But the monsters weren't under my bed. They were in my head. And worse, they were waiting. Midnight crept up like a fog. Slow, heavy. I kept checking the clock. 11:12, 11:29, 11:47. At 11:58, I found myself already outside. I don't remember making the decision to go. I don't remember putting on my shoes. But I was moving again, through the quad, across the dirt path behind the dorms, into the trees, the same pull in my chest, like a magnet in my ribcage. The forest felt different this time, wetter, like it had rained, even though the sky had been clear all day. The ground sucked at my shoes with each step. Branches curled like fingers above me. The air tasted like metal, and somewhere ahead, I saw it again. That light. Not flickering this time, steady, alive. They were already there when I arrived. More of them than last time, at least 15, all masked, all standing perfectly still, like mannequins under the stars. The fire wasn't just in the center anymore. It circled the group, 6 torches planted in the dirt like a burning ring. And in the middle, the stone, flat, carved, symbols scratched deep into its surface. Some new, some ancient. I stood at the edge of the circle, unsure whether to step in. Then I heard it. My name. Eli. Soft. Barely above a whisper. I turned. Jade again. Same dark hood. Same mask pushed to the side of her face. She looked tired this time. More worn. "You came back," she said. "I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. But once you choose, there's no turning back." She took my hand and pulled me gently toward the fire. "Tonight, One of the masked figures said, "We name the echoes." The group replied in unison, "We name, we witness, we remember." Another voice spoke, older, rough like gravel, "Speak their names." The book was opened again. A different masked figure stepped forward and read aloud. Gabriel Wren, class of 1969. Lost to the Circle. Alma Groves, class of 1952. Given to the Flame. Jonah Marks, class of 2025. I froze. That was my roommate. The one who disappeared. Gone. Witnessed. Remembered. My skin went cold. I hadn't told them Jonah was my roommate. I hadn't told anyone. They shouldn't have known. But they did. And then it hit me he didn't drop out. He didn't leave. He was taken. The group began to chant. Low. Rhythmic. Not words I understood. Vowels stretched too long. Consonants cut too short. It sounded like a heartbeat in reverse. The torches flared. The circle closed in. And I was pulled to the center. "No," I whispered. "What is this? What are you doing?" Jade stepped forward. "Tonight you are marked, not as one of the lost, but as one of the remembered, a witness." She touched my forehead with 2 fingers, smearing something cold. Smelled like ash. "You must carry their memory, until the end." I wanted to run, but I couldn't move, not because they held me, but because something else was there now, behind the fire, in the trees, watching. The flame dimmed for a second, just a flicker, and in that moment the shadows moved. And they were tall, wrong, crawling across the forest floor with too many limbs. No eyes, no face, just shape and hunger. Jade leaned in, her voice almost a breath against my cheek. "They feed on the forgotten, so we remember. We must remember." The group chanted louder now. "Witness, remember, return," over and over. The trees trembled. The flames bent sideways. I closed my eyes, trying to block it out. And when I opened them again, the fire was gone. The torches, gone. The masks, the people, even Jade, gone. Just the stone remained. Cold, wet, alone. And I stood there, heart pounding like a war drum, with the ash still smudged on my skin. I stumbled back to campus sometime around 2 a.m. No one stopped me. No one saw me. But everything felt different. Like I was seeing the campus through someone else's eyes. Like I was a guest here now, not a student. A trespasser in a place that wasn't quite real anymore. I made it to my room and shut the door behind me. Locked it, bolted it, pulled my chair in front of it for good measure. I wanted to sleep, but the whispers returned. Not from the hallway, from inside my room, from inside my head. Witness, remember, return. And worst of all, I whispered it back. The next morning, I woke up with dried blood under my nose. I hadn't hit anything. There was no pain, no dizziness, just that red, caked and crusted beneath one nostril. And the whispering, still there, but different now. It no longer felt like it came from outside me. It was more like something had taken root within me. A quiet echo, humming just beneath my thoughts. Remember, return, remember, return. I stood in the mirror and stared at my reflection. Then I saw it. A mark, barely visible just below my left ear. A triangle, sharp, precise, almost like it had been burned in, then healed overnight. Same as the guy from economics. I wasn't just a guest anymore. I was one of them. I skipped all my classes that day. I couldn't sit in a room full of normal people pretending things were okay. I went to the library instead, hunting the archives for anything I could find about them. The circle, the disappearances, the woods, old newspapers, yearbooks, campus newsletters from decades ago. And there it was, a page from 1983, a short article barely 3 paragraphs long. Another student missing after a late-night walk through the Ashridge Woods. The 3rd disappearance this semester. Administration reminds students not to wander off campus after dark. No names, no follow-up, just silence. A memory buried beneath bureaucracy. But the pattern was there. Always the woods, always the night, always forgotten. And maybe that was the point. Maybe that's how they kept feeding. If no one remembers them, the lost stay lost. Unless someone carries their names. Unless someone witnesses. I ran into Jade again in the dining hall. She wasn't eating, just sitting at a table alone, tracing a spiral into the plastic surface with her thumbnail. I slid into the seat across from her. Why me? She didn't look up. Why any of us? No, I insisted. Why did you send me the letter? How do you even pick people? She finally met my eyes. Some of us see cracks in people, gaps, rooms inside their minds they haven't unlocked yet. That's where the invitation goes. It slips through. So it's not really you who chooses. She smiled faintly. It's them. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Later that evening, I noticed someone following me. At first, I thought it was just paranoia, but then I heard the footsteps behind me. Slow, measured. I turned quickly. No one. But the moment I faced forward again, a figure appeared on the path ahead. A man, wearing one of their masks. No fire this time. No circle. Just him, standing still in the middle of the path. He didn't speak, didn't move. I tried to walk around him, heart thudding like a drum, but he turned slowly to face me, tracking me like a predator. The mask was smooth, no mouth, but the eye holes, those were deeper than they should have been, like staring into tunnels that didn't end. Then he raised his hand and pointed behind me. I turned. Another masked figure stood behind me now, and another off to the left, another to the right, for, surrounding me, none of them moved, but I got the message. I was marked now, and the masked ones were always watching. Back in my room, I shut the blinds, locked the door, didn't turn on the lights. I pulled the blanket over my head again, like that would make a difference. I didn't want to be a part of this, but they weren't giving me a choice anymore. Sleep finally came, eventually, and with it, a dream. The woods again, only darker. The trees were made of bone. The sky was red, and in the distance, I heard the fire crackling, but no one was around it, just the masks floating above the flames, turning in slow circles as if searching. I reached for one of them, compelled, and the moment I touched it, a voice boomed across the dreamscape. Witness or be forgotten. I woke up choking, sweat soaking the sheets, and in my hand, a splinter, sharp, burnt black at the tip, like it came from a campfire log. The next night, I didn't wait until midnight. I went to the woods at 10 p.m., hoping, somehow, that I could confront whatever this was. But there was no fire, no Jade, no masked figures, just silence, and a single object placed carefully in the center of the clearing. A new mask, different from the others, black, not white, and on the inside scratched into the surface. For the one who remembers. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was warm, almost alive. I stood there for a long time, staring at it in the pale moonlight. And then I heard them, footsteps, not approaching, circling, dozens of them, whispers returning, rising with every step. And for the first time, I whispered back, I remember. That night, I didn't go back to my dorm. Couldn't. Something had changed in me. That whisper wasn't a voice anymore. It was a presence, constant, patient, like something had taken root in my chest and was waiting to bloom. And the mask, it wouldn't let me drop it. Every time I tried, I'd find it back in my hand, warm, heavy, like it wanted me to wear it. But I wasn't ready, not yet. I went to Jade's room the next morning. She didn't answer her door. I knocked harder, then again. When I finally opened it, I found her window wide open, cold air blowing through, her bed made perfectly, untouched. She was gone. No note, no clothes missing, no sign of struggle, like she'd never lived there, except for one thing, a smear of ash on the wall beside her desk, drawn into the same spiral I'd seen her tracing days ago. I touched it with 2 fingers, still warm. I went to the old stone in the clearing that afternoon. In daylight, it seemed harmless, just a hunk of rock in the middle of some trees. But I knew better now. I got down on my knees and ran my hand over its surface. The carvings were faint, but they were there. Symbols, names, some old, some new, and one stood out. J. Marsh, Jonah, my roommate. He was part of the stone now, marked forever, carved in ash and memory. I didn't know whether to scream or cry, so I just whispered his name, and the trees answered back. Witness. I went back to the archives that night. I needed more answers. There had to be someone else who had made it out. And there was. In a 1976 newsletter, one paragraph tucked at the bottom of the page. Former student Margot Blythe published a short memoir last month claiming knowledge of dark rituals in the Ashridge Woods during her time at Black Hollow University. School administration declined to comment. A memoir. Her name wasn't familiar, but the mention was all I needed. I searched every online database, every old digital catalog I could get my hands on. And there it was, carved in ash, a witness account by Margot Blythe, 1981. The library didn't have it, but the intercampus system said one copy existed, in the restricted special collections. I wasn't supposed to access it, but after everything I'd been through, I broke in. The book was thin, worn, the spine cracked from time. Inside the front cover, a single note in red ink. If you're reading this, it's already too late. I kept going. She described everything. The circle, the masked ones, the way the forest changed at night, how the invitations found people who were already half lost inside. Margot said she escaped, barely, but not without a price, because even when she left campus, they followed, not with feet, with memory. They live in the cracks between thought, the corners of sight, the breath just before sleep. And she wrote something else, something that made my blood run cold. You can break the chain by replacing yourself. Replace? Did she mean sacrifice? Did someone else take her place? Was that what happened to Jonah? To Jade? I left the library just before midnight. The woods were already waiting for me, but this time I wasn't afraid. I put the mask on, fit too well, like it was made for me. And when I stepped into the clearing, the torches lit without fire. They simply ignited, whoosh, and the masked ones appeared, stepping into the circle like smoke drifting into shape. No chanting this time, no ceremony. They stood silently, watching me. Then one of them stepped forward. I recognized the build, the height, the posture. It was Jonah, or what was left of him. He removed his mask, but where his face should have been, only ash, cracked, fragile, eyes empty, mouth sealed. But when he opened it, I still heard his voice. You're close. To what? I asked. To choosing. Choosing what? He raised a finger and pointed at the stone, and I understood. I was supposed to add a name, not mine, someone else's. I looked around the circle, at the masked witnesses, at the fire that burned without heat, and I felt the memory swell inside me. So full it was almost painful. All those names, all those lives, carved in ash. I ripped the mask off. The wind howled like a scream. The fire dimmed instantly. One of the masked ones lunged at me, but I ducked and ran. Branches whipped my face. Something grabbed my shoulder, cold and boneless, but I shook it off. I ran harder than I ever had, and when I burst back onto campus, the air felt different, heavier, like something had followed me out. I didn't sleep that night, not because of the whispers, but because I saw something outside my window. Jade, standing in the courtyard, wearing a new mask, one made of bone, and in her hands, a piece of chalk, scraping something into the bricks beside the dorm entrance. I watched her finish it. Then she turned and looked straight up at me, through the window, into my eyes. She pointed at the mark behind her. A single word, choose. I didn't leave my room all day. The word Jade had scrawled on the wall, choose, burned behind my eyes no matter where I looked. Every time I blinked, it was there. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, masked, still, waiting. But it wasn't just her. The whispers had returned. But now they weren't voices, they were names. Names I knew, names I didn't. spoken by mouths I couldn't see. David Carter, Hannah Lee, Professor Adler, Jonah Marsh. My own voice joined the chorus without my permission. And every time I said a name, the mark behind my ear pulsed. It didn't hurt. It hungered. By sunset, I'd made a decision. I wouldn't choose. I wouldn't offer up someone else's life just to protect my own. They could whisper all they wanted. They could send their masked wraiths and twisted memories. I wasn't going to be like them, but as night fell, something shifted. My dorm light flickered, then cut out completely. The window cracked, not shattered, just enough for cold air to curl through. And across my mirror, a message etched itself in the fog of my breath. If not a name, then yours. I grabbed the mask, not to wear it, to end it. I was gonna burn the damn thing. I ran to the communal courtyard with a bottle of lighter fluid from under the sink. The mask sat on the stone floor as I drenched it, hands shaking. I struck a match, held it over the mask, but it wouldn't light. The flame died in the air, like something sucked the heat out of it. I dropped the match. Then I felt the presence behind me, a slow, cold wind that didn't belong. When I turned, every window in the building facing the courtyard was black. But I could see them, faces, not behind glass, behind the darkness itself. Watching. Back in my room, the mask was waiting. I'd left it outside. Didn't matter. It was back on my desk, dry as bone, clean of any fluid. As if daring me, I sat down across from it, breathing hard. And then, I made a choice. Not their kind of choice. Mine. If they wanted a name, fine. I'd give them one. A name that didn't exist. I went to the library again. There was an old student directory from decades ago. I found someone who'd dropped out mid-semester in 1979. Never returned. No one knew why. Her name was Eliza Kent. I wrote it on a piece of paper. Walked out into the woods. Mask in one hand. Her name in the other. The torches lit as I entered the circle. They were waiting again. Dozens now. A forest of shadows. No Jade. No Jonah. Just the watchers. And then a figure stepped forward. The tallest yet, wearing a mask made of twisted antlers. When he spoke, it wasn't in words. It was inside me, a pressure behind the ribs. One must take root for another to be forgotten. I held out the name. Eliza Kent, I said. The mask in my other hand pulsed with heat. The watchers stirred. Not in anger, not in joy, in agreement. Then so it shall be, the antlered one said. And I felt the mark behind my ear sear, one final time. I woke up in my bed, as if nothing had happened. No ash, no bruises, no mask. But on my desk was the student directory, open to Eliza Kent's name. Her entry had changed. Where it once read, dropped out, 1979, it now read, graduated with honors. And under that, in faded ink, witness. For the next week, everything was normal again. I went to class. I laughed. I slept. I didn't see Jade, or Jonah, or the masked ones. It was like the whole nightmare had folded into itself. But late one night, as I brushed my teeth, I noticed something in the mirror. A change. The triangle mark behind my ear was gone, but a new one had appeared on the base of my neck. A small spiral, the same one Jade used to trace, the same one drawn in ash beside her desk. The whispers were gone, but dreams remained. Dreams of masks, of names carved in trees, of torches flickering under blood-red skies, and always the circle, waiting. One night, a knock came at my door. When I opened it, no one was there, just an envelope on the floor. Inside, a black card, with a single name written in ink. Your turn. The card sat on my desk for 2 days before I touched it again. Your turn. 2 words, in handwriting I didn't recognize, but I felt it. I knew who it was from. The circle. The masked ones. The thing that now lived beneath the campus like a second heartbeat. I tried to bury it. I'd lied to it. I gave it Eliza Kent, and it had accepted her like a sacrificial offering. But now the circle had called me back. No mask this time. No whispering voice or midnight fire, just the card, and a memory I couldn't shake, of Jonah's ashen face cracking and Jade's stillness in the courtyard. I stayed up that night, staring at the tree line past my dorm window. There was a rhythm in the dark woods. Not wind, not animal. A pulse. Thump, pause, thump, like something breathing. Alive. I finally left my room at 2:47 a.m., the envelope still in my hoodie pocket. I didn't take a flashlight. I didn't need one. The forest glowed now. Soft blue light shimmered from the underbrush, moss illuminated with a quiet energy, like it had been fed secrets for too long and had started to hum with them. My feet led me without thought. The trees whispered behind me, not with sound, with memory, whispers of Jonah's laughter, of Jade's voice in class, of my own voice, scared and shaking, the first night I entered the woods. Please don't leave me here. Then I saw it. The tree, massive, so wide it could swallow a small house. Its bark was scorched in places, smooth in others, like it had been carved and healed over and over again. The witness tree. I didn't know how I knew the name. I just did. It stood in the very center of the forest, the eye of the storm. Its branches reached out like arms frozen mid-scream, and carved into the trunk in hundreds of tiny marks, names. Some fresh, some faded, some in languages I didn't understand. But one was brand new. Eliza Kent. Her name pulsed faintly in the bark, glowing like a dying ember. I touched it. The tree shuddered. I stumbled back, heart pounding. Behind me, the forest had gone silent, completely. Not a single insect, not a gust of wind. And then, from behind the tree, a figure emerged. Not masked, not cloaked, just human. A girl, my age, maybe younger. Her hair was matted with leaves and dirt. Her clothes hung off her like she'd been wearing them for decades. "Are you the one who gave them my name?" she asked. I froze. I didn't think. You didn't think at all, she snapped, voice thin and shaking. You gave them me. I was free. Eliza Kent. Alive. Or something like it. I stepped closer. I was trying to survive. I thought you were already gone. She shook her head. That's what they want you to think. That we vanish. That we become part of the circle. But we don't. We just shift. I looked around. So what is this place? The tree. She stepped aside, revealing a hollow at the base of the tree, blacker than shadow. This is where names are sealed. Once a name is carved into the bark, it belongs to them. Then how are you still here? Because the tree hasn't finished feeding yet. Suddenly, the whispers began again. Faster, louder, voices I recognized and some I didn't. Dozens of names spinning in my head like a hurricane. James, Andrew, Sarah, Eliza, Jonah, me. My knees buckled. Eliza grabbed my shoulder. You have to listen to me. There's only one way to stop it. What? I gasped. You have to become the last name. What does that mean? She looked toward the tree. You write your own name in. Fully. Willingly. It ends the cycle. The tree goes quiet. The circle fades. But only if it's your choice. And what happens to me? She didn't answer, but I saw it in her face. The bark of the tree shifted before me, forming letters. D. Morgan, half carved. Waiting. I reached into my pocket. The card was gone. In its place, a knife. Small, bone-handled. Oh, I didn't remember taking it, but I knew what it was for. I stepped toward the tree. No, Eliza said, grabbing my arm. Not like this. You said this was the only way. That's what they want you to believe. But there's another choice. Which is? Take the tree's place. I stared at her. What? She stepped back, opening her arms. That's what I did. That's why I'm still here. The circle doesn't just need names. It needs a root, a soul to hold the cycle together. One to carry the names and whispers. That's the witness. I looked down at the bark, then at the knife, and suddenly I knew. I wasn't just here to end it. I was here to decide what it becomes next. The knife was ice in my hand. I looked at Eliza, still barefoot and still, like she'd fused with the soil under her. You're saying I can either carve my name and vanish, or stay here, become part of this tree? She nodded slowly. You don't vanish. You become the gate. You hold the circle back. And the whispers? They never stop. Not really. They just quiet down. She took a step closer. The others, they chose names, sacrificed strangers, lost pieces of themselves every time. But someone has to hold the names. Someone has to bear them. You said you did that. I did, for 46 years. She looked down at her arms. They were bark now, not skin. Her hands moved like wood creaking in wind. I'm running out of time. The tree began to groan. Deep, guttural cracks in the trunk, like something was waking up or dying. I turned back to the names carved there. Hundreds of them. Some I recognized. Others were ancient. Each one flickered like a dying ember. Then one lit up. Jonah Marsh. I flinched. I hadn't said his name out loud in weeks. Eliza stepped beside me. They're testing you, seeing if you'll give him up next. I clutched the knife tighter. The circle wanted a name, a soul, any soul. Even now, after all I'd been through, part of me still wanted to whisper someone else's name just to escape. But another part knew that's how it spreads. What happens if I leave? I asked. You won't get far. Not this time. The circles watched you too long. Then why give me a choice? Eliza smiled sadly. Because the only way to end it is for the witness to choose. That's the one rule they can't break. And if I don't choose, then the circle grows. Stronger, closer, hungrier. Her voice cracked. And eventually, there will be no names left to give. I dropped the knife. Let it sink into the mossy earth like it belonged there. Eliza nodded. She reached out, her hand rough and splintered now, and pressed her fingers to my chest. A dull warmth spread through me. Close your eyes, she whispered. I did, and the forest vanished. I was standing in my childhood backyard, a treehouse above me, the stars like scattered diamonds, and my father, alive again, sitting beside a fire pit, looking up at me. Names are heavy things, he said. Dad, not really, just your memory of me, but I'm proud of you, son. Why? Because you didn't run, and because you finally stopped looking for the door out. He smiled, then everything melted into wind. I woke up inside the hollow of the tree, not just beneath it, inside it. The bark surrounded me, a soft pulsing glow in every direction. The names were etched in the walls now, endless, moving like breathing veins. And in the center of my chest, a new mark burned, a spiral, carved in light. I was the new witness. Eliza was gone, returned to the soil. The circle whispered to me, testing me, always testing. But I whispered back now, and they listened. For the first time in generations, they listened. Time became a strange thing. Nights passed like seconds. Days stretched into hours that never came. I watched from within the tree as students passed through the forest, unaware of the circle watching just beneath their feet. I learned the language of the names. I sang to the woods when they grew too restless. Sometimes I could still feel my old self, my old body, still sleeping in a dorm bed that no longer existed. Then one night I felt her, someone new, standing at the edge of the woods, young, scared, with a mask in one hand and a name on her tongue. I whispered through the trees, "You don't have to give them anything." She paused, looked around, then whispered back, "Who are you?" I smiled, because it was the first time in years anyone had asked. "I'm the one who remembers." "Are you a ghost?" "No." I looked around at the glowing bark, the sea of names, the circle of shadows that waited beyond the roots. "I'm the witness." The girl's name was Clara. I didn't know how I knew it, just that I did. Her presence stirred the roots under me. The circle hissed, eager. But something was different about her. She wasn't like the others. She stood at the edge of the clearing, where the moss no longer glowed. In her right hand, she held a black envelope. In her left, a mask, not worn yet, just held like it might burn her if she tried. Is anyone here? She called again, voice barely above a whisper. I tried to answer, but I couldn't. Not the way I wanted. The forest would not allow speech the way humans used it. So I reached through the roots instead, gently, tugging at the wind, the leaves, the light. The moss brightened beneath her feet, spelling just one word. No! She froze. The circle's eyes were opening. I could feel them rising in the hollows of the trees, behind the trunks, watching, eager, hungry. I pressed back, held the root lines tighter. Not yet. Let her decide. They didn't like that. The forest groaned. Several names along the bark of my prison flared, like angry ghosts. Jonah, Eliza, David. My name. Still glowing, still mine, but no longer the sacrifice. Now the gate. Clara stared at the glowing word, "N-O." Then she crouched down, touched the moss, and whispered, "Then why do I feel like something is watching me?" I wanted to scream, because something was. I watched as she opened the envelope. I could already guess what it would say. She read it aloud. "Your turn." That's it. Just those words. What the hell does that mean? The circle hissed again. The shadows moved, stretching closer around her. The mask in her hand shifted. The shape of it warped slightly, like it was trying to mold to her face. She raised it. "Don't," I whispered through the roots. She blinked, looked around. What was that? She pressed the mask to her cheek for just a second, and it reacted violently. Her body jerked back as if shocked, and the black surface of the mask suddenly cracked. A long, jagged split. She dropped it with a yelp. The circle reeled. They hadn't expected resistance. The mask began crawling toward her on its own. I flared every glowing name inside me, like a siren, blinding, deafening, boiling against the forest floor. The circle screamed. Clara ran. She didn't go far, just to the edge of the clearing, but far enough that the mask stopped moving. It lay there, twitching, melting back into the moss like a failed egg. She rejected it, I realized, and not just out of fear, out of instinct, like she knew it didn't belong to her. I pushed again, sent a wave of warmth through the forest floor. The wind around her whispered again, "Run," but she didn't. Instead, Clara knelt beside the tree, the witness tree, where I was. She touched its bark gently. "I don't know why I'm here," she whispered, "but I'm not like them. I didn't agree to anything. I didn't ask to be chosen." I heard her, felt her. For the first time in decades, someone spoke to me, to the real me. "Then walk away," I tried to say. "Please, just walk away." But my voice came out as wind, and her hair blew sideways in the breeze I didn't know I could summon. She looked up, right at me. "You're not part of them, are you?" I said nothing, but the bark beneath her hand pulsed. Just once. She smiled sadly. "Good. I don't think I could do this if you were." The circle hissed again. I could feel them forming around her, flickers of shape behind the trees. Black robes, featureless masks, arms that never bent naturally. Their whisper crawled through the branches. She must choose. I pressed harder. Not tonight, but they were persistent. They surrounded the clearing, inching closer with each breath. Clara felt it too. She stood up, picked up the mask again. But this time, she held it like a weapon. "I don't know what you are," she shouted to the woods. "But I'm not part of this." She threw the mask straight into the witness tree, right into me. Pain flared. Not physical pain, memory. The moment the mask touched the bark, I felt her entire life. Her memories, her fears, her sleepless nights, her questions, her guilt. She was just like I had been, alone, curious, brave, and the circle had marked her. I took the pain. I ate it. The tree groaned and split. For the first time, the bark cracked, not in decay, but in release. A long vertical tear down the center, and through it, light. Clara stared. What did I do? I whispered to her, as clearly as I could. "You broke the mask." She stepped back as the glow intensified. I could feel something changing. The circle panicked. Their forms faded. their voices scattered like smoke in rain. And Clara ran again. But this time I let her go. No more signs. No more warnings. She was free. And so was I. For a moment. A breath. The mask lay melted at the base of the tree. The names dimmed. But I stayed. Because someone had to hold the gate. Even if just a little longer. The clearing is quiet now. No more flickering shadows behind the trees. No low hissing from invisible mouths. The circle sleeps. But I don't. I can't. The roots still hum with names, old and new, etched into the flesh of the forest. The mask Clara shattered lies buried beneath the soil, but I can feel its shards, like teeth trying to regrow. The tree holds me tightly, not cruelly, not like before. Now it's like, it knows I chose this. I'm not a prisoner anymore. I'm a sentinel, a final line between the circle and everyone else. The forest breathes. Even in silence, it's alive. Owls blink in the darkness. Bats flutter overhead. Creatures scurry through the underbrush, blissfully unaware of the ancient hunger buried here. They don't feel the cold anymore. They don't see the shift in the shadows. But I do. I always will. And I wait. For what, I'm never exactly sure. Maybe for the next Clara. Or maybe for someone who won't throw the mask away. Someone who wears it without question. That's what the circle wants again. Obedience, worship, growth. Sometimes I dream. Not like before, no visions of other lives or desperate rituals. Now I dream of the clearing. Empty, peaceful. The moss glowing like moonlight. And the tree, my tree cracking open and letting me go. But I always wake before it finishes. And when I do, I feel the whispers pressing at the edges again. Quieter now, careful. They know I'm listening. I've become part of the forest. The filter. They speak and I choose what gets through. Most of the time, it's just names. Sometimes it's please. Tonight, one name glows. It isn't Clara's. It's mine. David. The bark pulses softly, like it's remembering who I was before all this. A college kid with no idea what he was stepping into. I laugh and the forest listens. Not with mockery, but reverence. Like even my voice now holds power. It's a strange feeling to be the one holding back something ancient and hungry, yet still feel like a ghost. Not quite alive, not quite dead, just in between. I think about Eliza sometimes, how long she must have waited, how heavy those years had to feel watching the world pass her by, knowing that if she ever slipped up, people would die. And now it's my turn. Only maybe I can do better, because the circle's cracked now. Not fully broken, but wounded, and wounds can rot if they're not treated. So I hold the rot in place, contain it, bury it in memory. Sometimes I hear laughter, not evil, not twisted, just laughter. Children playing in the distance, dogs barking, music from a speaker carried through the breeze. And for those moments, the circle falls silent. It hates joy, it hates forgetting, because forgetting means moving on, letting go, healing. But I remember, and I refuse to let it grow again. It's been years. Clara never came back. I think that's a good thing. Some nights I catch a glimpse of her in the dreams, older now, maybe teaching, maybe just living. Her eyes are still sharp. She remembers something, I know it, but she doesn't chase it. She doesn't need to. She chose freedom. And because she did, I chose to stay. I think the circle hoped I'd break. That over time I'd crack like the others did. That I'd start whispering names again. Feeding them strangers. Allowing the hunger to return. But I haven't. And I won't. Because I remember the moment I made the choice. Standing under the tree. Holding a knife that wasn't mine. Looking at Eliza, who had already sacrificed everything just to give someone else a chance. That moment sits in me like a second heartbeat. It's what keeps the roots from digging into my mind. What keeps the whispers from twisting into commands. Tonight, the wind feels different. Not darker, not heavier, just final. Like the forest is holding its breath. And in the bark, my name begins to fade. That's never happened before. I don't fight it. I just watch as the letters of my name dissolve into the wood. And something in me loosens. A weight I didn't know I'd been carrying for so long. I see the clearing again. Not in a dream, not through the tree. With my own eyes. I'm standing, breathing. The moonlight paints everything in silver. No robes, no masks, no circle, just me. I take a step forward. The moss glows underfoot. I turn. The tree is whole again, unscarred, clean, no names, just bark, just wood. And I understand. The circle isn't gone. It's sleeping. But for now, the gate is closed. The forest is free. And me, I finally get to walk away. Not because I was spared. Not because I gave a name. But because I stayed. Because sometimes the only way to break the curse is to carry it long enough for it to forget your face. And now I'm just a man in the woods. Nothing more, nothing less. And the circle, it'll have to wait.